We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. As yoga becomes much more popular in the United States and worldwide, there are many schools of thought on yoga. And so my friend Jeff Pearlman is on today, and Jeff is a certified teacher of Iyengar Yoga, a form of yoga which is based on the work of BKS Iyengar. My friend Jeff has been on the show before. Jeff, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you.
And so for the listening audience, get a little closer to the microphone. What is Iyengar Yoga?
Iyengar Yoga is yoga that was developed by BKS Iyengar, and it's considered Ashtanga Yoga, which is the eight-limbed yoga. 8 limbs meaning Patanjali, who was a sage that lived around 500 BC. He wrote the Yoga Sutras, which explained the 8-limb path of yoga. Mr. Iyengar developed this form of yoga because he saw a need to most of the yoga postures, many of the yoga postures are very, very difficult, and he understood that yoga was about alignment. You can't really find a spiritual aspect to it and the breathing part of it until you get your body in the correct alignment. And in turn, many of us are not capable of doing these postures. So he's really the man that was responsible for laying out a step-by-step process of doing the postures with props. So if you've ever been to a yoga class, as I know you have, there are bolsters and blocks and blankets and chairs and straps, and for each person who has their own challenges, you can use different props to help you to do a closer rendition of the final pose.
Right. So you do and you teach Iyengar Yoga based on the work of BKS Iyengar, who I believe is still living. Is he 95 years old?
He's 95. I actually saw him last November, and he turned 95 December 15th. You were in India visiting, or rather studying with BKS Iyengar just this couple of months ago, in November last year. Yeah.
Right.
As a teacher, there are different levels of teachers in the Iyengar system, and as you go up higher, you have to go to India at certain levels.
I see.
And we're encouraged to go. We're allowed to go every 2 years, and you can stay in India at the institute for up to 2 months.
Also, you're encouraged to go. It's like revising your teaching credentials. They make you do this stuff. I'm happy to hear that. I didn't realize.
Well, at a higher level than I'm at, you're required to go that. But they encourage all of us that are teachers, and you can actually go to the institute and not be a teacher, but you have to be recommended by more of a senior teacher. And you've had to practice for about 8 years before you're allowed to go there, because they don't want to deal with raw beginners,
right,
all the foreigners. So. Right. They have to know that when you're coming in, you can just handle the classes they have for the foreigners there.
Alrighty. Now, for the listening audience on Here's to Your Health today, what is yoga? Tell me again. What is yoga?
Well, yoga is defined as union. It's the union of the individual spirit with the larger spirit.
Okay.
So, I mean, if that's probably the simplest way to say it. It's a union.
Well, that's a nice way to say it. And what prompted you to study yoga in general, and specifically the Iyengar Yoga that you teach?
I had an injury that happened from running marathons, and it was serious enough that I had to stop running. And I came to a realization that I wanted to find something where I could go more inwards instead of looking to the outside, whether it's just endorphins or the kind of car I'm driving or how much money I made, I just found in my personal life that I was looking to go more in. And so when I had this accident, I went to a large local yoga studio that has many branches here in Southern California. And I just started going to classes. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any idea about yoga. And I just hurt myself. I kept hurting myself in class because I didn't have enough awareness about what I was doing. And my girlfriend at the time was an Iyengar. She wasn't a teacher yet also. She is now. And she took me to her teacher to help me with the problem I was having. And that was it, that I was given enough attention and direct instruction to be able to find my foundation and then move on in my practice.
I see. And what years were these? What are you talking about?
Oh, this was around 1998 that this all started.
Huh?
Yeah.
And you ran the Boston Marathon or the New York Marathon or the LA Marathon? Which ones did you run?
Well, I've run Los Angeles twice, New York twice, San Francisco once.
Can I ask what your best time was?
4:09.
Oh, that's very credible, isn't it?
Yeah,
good for you.
It was okay.
Oh my God, yeah, that's very credible. Because that's really a commitment to have the prowess to do that. It's like, it's not it's not like practicing for 20 minutes. You have to really practice to be able to run for 4 hours.
Well, it's a lot of planning. Any person that's listening that's ever run a marathon is, you pick the date of the marathon, the date that you're running the marathon, and then you back off week by week by week, and you start a more realistic training program where every week you increase your miles on a long run. So like a week before you run the marathon, the long run probably would be about 20 miles. And then you're all set. Then the next week's the marathon. So that's how it's an organized. So it suits my person. It's always suited my personality, things like that.
And BKS Iyengar, the Iyengar, and but for my audience, would you please spell Iyengar?
Iyengar.
Now, of all the yoga you've done, why were you attracted to study Iyengar yoga and then to receive a certification?
I was fascinated by the bookwork, the philosophy, the mythology, the anatomy, and as a student of Iyengar Yoga, before I went to they have a teacher training program that lasts for 3 years. So it takes it's quite a process to become a teacher.
Right. They really train you, and they don't give you a certificate in 3 months. They're not that. No.
No, you have to actually pass 2 separate tests a year apart to actually be called a certified Iyengar teacher. So, in my case, it took 5 years. It's taken, it's quite a long journey to become a teacher. But for me, it all started that I knew all by going to the institute here in Los Angeles. There's a nonprofit institute here and in San Francisco and one in New York City.
Where's the one here in LA? Where is it in LA?
It's
is it Century City?
No, it's like 18th and La Cienega, which is near where La Cienega meets the 10 freeway. Mm-hmm. It's in that area. Okay. But I knew by going as a student, I saw the books that were involved in the teacher training, and I knew I would never read these on my own. So originally, I thought, well, yeah, I want to learn how to teach, but I really want a planned program to actually start understanding the basis of yoga. I mean, when you say yoga, people think that it's a physical practice, and yes, there's a physical side to it, but really, yoga is more about the quieting of the mind. The whole focus of it, which is explained in these 8 limbs of yoga by this man Patanjali, yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. That is the English definition of what he saw that the definition of yoga is. So that's how it started for me. And then, I went through this program and I became a teacher. And a lot of people do it and they don't teach. They just want to
information.
Yeah, and it's a huge amount of, for instance, Ayurveda is taught in the teacher training. Because
what's Ayurveda?
Well, Ayurveda is the Indian holistic medical system. Mm-hmm. Both Ayurveda and yoga were first mentioned over 5,000 years ago in the Vedas. The Vedas were the first actual documentation
So they really
of
have
India.
they really have historical documents that they feel really are really fully 5,000 years old.
Oh yes,
All right.
the Vedas are the basis of Hinduism, the basis of Indian thought, and there's more than one Veda, but that's where yoga and Ayurveda were first mentioned. So Ayurveda is the physical side of yoga, and yoga is the mental side of. I mean, the two are sister sciences.
Alrighty. So
And-
Ayurveda is a system of a system of what? Of philosophy for living.
It's a holistic medicine. It actually means the science of life, the knowledge of life. That's what it means, and it's based in the 5-element theory, same as yoga. I mean, you can imagine that many years ago, it wasn't like today. There were certain ways that things were thought of and believed as far as the philosophy of how the beginning of time was, how a man was made, and the 5 elements play an important part of all of that.
What are the 5 elements?
Ether, air, fire, water, and earth. So a lot of times you go to a yoga class and they talk about the 5 elements in your practice. How do you, bring the muscle to the bone? How do you allow the movement of energy? All of the elements explain this. And in Ayurveda, this explains disease. And that Ayurveda is this amazing science that using the 5 elements, which are associated with the 5 senses also, Ayurveda uses the 5 sense therapies for healing. So for instance, color therapy, smell therapy, which would be aromatherapy, mantras and chanting would be hearing, taste would be food and spices and herbs, and then the touch would be massage or yoga or something like that would affect that sense.
Now I do know I had Chris Chappell on my show. Chris runs the master's degree granting program at Loyola Marymount right here in Los Angeles, and Chris also has been studying yoga for a very long time, and I think yoga, obviously people like it because there are yoga studios in LA. I make the joke on every corner. That's not really true, but there are yoga studios in abundance here in LA. People are interested in the subject of wellness, and people are attracted on different levels. I go for a number of reasons, but I find when I do the physical postures that I feel good. My back feels good. My neck feels good. It's just kind of relaxing. My body feels better, as opposed to your body not hurting, just feeling kind of neutral. But if you do yoga, your body can actually feel good, which is a very interesting concept.
Well, yoga brings body, mind, and spirit together. Body, mind, and breath. I mean, the same difference. And, for me personally, yes, when I practice every day, I physically feel the difference. But yoga is a way for you to bring your awareness, attention inwards. Find your center. It's like like last time I was here, we did Tadasana, which is the mountain pose.
Yes, standing posture. Yes.
The first standing posture you learn. That posture teaches you to be grounded in the earth. It allows you to be centered and find your own center and go in. And that's originally why I came to yoga, is because I was looking for something to bring all of those aspects into my life.
And you feel that to a large extent, the yoga, you're happy with the ideas you've learned, with the postures you've learned. I mean, you're happy with what you've been presented and the teachers you've been working with. You think, this is good for me. On a purely prosaic level, you think, man, I've benefited.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I mean, I consider myself, even though I'm a teacher, I'm a student. Right. I'm a student of Ayurveda. Even though I'm a practitioner of Ayurveda, I have a degree in Ayurveda, I'm a practitioner here. I mean, I'm a student. It's such a huge subject. Right. There's so much. It's a lifelong subject.
Yeah, it's nice to know that really, as much as you know, and you benefit from what you know, of course. You get benefit. You realize, oh my goodness, there's so much more to know, which is actually kind of a pleasant idea. You realize, well, okay, I know this, but I know I could know that much more. It's kind of fun, really.
Yeah.
By the way, you're teaching. You have a course coming up very soon.
Well, I actually am teaching a workshop in Ayurveda which is a basic workshop, but it's going to be about the cleansing process. This is the springtime, and
Right.
this is the main time of cleansing. There's 2 times a year in Ayurveda that you mainly cleanse, would be spring and then fall. And so I'm teaching this workshop that will have the basis of Ayurveda, but it will also, I decided to find which were the 10 most popular diets and cleanses, out there in the world. And part of the workshop is going to be examining the 10 most popular regimes going on.
Well, that's a nice idea.
And then,
Good for
just to bring some 21st century into, because Ayurvedic cleansing is quite different from doing juice fasts and all these sort of
Right.
things, and nothing against any of these. In Ayurveda, there's a belief that from the 5 elements, you have the 3 doshas. These are the energies in the body, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. One is related to air, one is related to fire, one is related to earth or stability. And so all kinds of different regimes are good for different doshas or what time of year it is. I mean, that's the amazing thing about this subject Ayurveda, is that, this isn't something thought up of 20 years ago.
Right.
This was something that was documented. There are books, from 4,000 years ago that explain, this medical science, and all of their medical sciences came from this, including Western medicine, including Chinese medicine. They all stem from this first this first basis of belief.
I've read that many scholars do think that ancient India may have been, possibly the first great civilization before Egypt and before Iran and other important great civilizations, and before obviously Greece and Rome, that India may have been the mother of that all.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I think the more anthropology they do and the more history they do, archaeology, the more it kind of supports that idea, which really wasn't discussed, I don't think, in the 1950s or early 1960s. It's only in the past 20 or so years that there's been a lot of discussion about India being the birthplace of many philosophical and practical and scientific accomplishment. I'll use that word.
It's an amazing place to travel because of all that. The first time you go there, it's overwhelming. But as soon as you touch the ground there, you're on the ground for a little while, you just realize how old a society it is, how old a belief system is, how spiritual in general, even though India has incredible challenges that we all hear about.
A lot of problems with pollution and other things, poverty.
The population's huge.
Right.
But there's a basis that is different there just because of the history. That it's an amazing place to go. I've been 4 times, and in my mind, I'm thinking about the next time I can go.
Oh, good for you. Yeah, and you were just there in November, right, for the BKS kind of party? It was kind of
I wasn't at the party. I had to come back because of my. I also am a chef, so I had to come back for the holiday season here, but I was there for part of October and November.
Yes, you help run a company that does, you do the Oscars, you do a lot of the showbiz parties.
We don't do the Oscars, but yes, we do the Grammys and large movie premieres, and we do a little of everything. It's an older company, and it's a very old established company in Los Angeles.
May I ask, since you've obviously been a chef for a while now and in food for a long time, do you see that even the mainstream person is eating fresher, better foods now? Is that a fair statement, or is that really silly?
Well, I think I think that there are a lot more choices out there. Mm-hmm. I don't think that the fast food industries in this country are thriving as well. As much as they are, if there wasn't just a tremendous amount of our society eating there. But I believe that every neighborhood has a farmer's market now. There's so much more awareness about local foods and health and so forth, that I think that there's huge choices for everyone.
Huh.
I don't know if that answers the question.
No, that's a very good answer. No, I like that answer. It's a very good answer.
I drive around and I see all the fast food restaurants. I'm going, well, somehow, people are obviously going there because there's thousands of them everywhere, but
I was in Santa Monica over the weekend on Sunday, and I was walking along Main Street because it's fun, and Abbott Kinney, it's fun. And there were a lot of people walking around smoking cigarettes, which kind of caught me by surprise. I mean, not that everyone was smoking, but there were people smoking, and I thought, oh, really, people smoking? Because in California, you don't see that much of it. But all the young ones running around, there were a lot of people actually smoking. I thought, okay, well, that has not completely gone away, I think at one point it was up to 43% of the American population in 1964 when the Surgeon General's report came out saying there are problems associated with the use of tobacco. And now I think it's down to 18% of the adult population smokes. So from 43% to 18% is really a big step forward. It's just,
That's still a lot of people.
It's still a lot of people.
18%.
But society takes a long time for things to change. And then they change, and people forget that it was a certain way. And so I just noticed it because obviously, from my perspective, it's not a great thing to do health-wise. It's just not a great thing. And by the way, so once again, where is your Ayurvedic class this week coming up?
Well, you can find information on my website, which is www.3seasonsayurveda.com.
3seasonsayurveda.com.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's in Westchester. It's very close to your studio here, actually.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And it's not until April. It's a few weeks away.
April what?
April 19th.
And you want to give me a phone number on that?
Well, the studio is called Live Yoga Wellness.
Live Yoga Wellness, alrighty. And they're in Westchester, right?
Yes, and their I don't have the phone number.
Okay.
But their website is www.liveyogawellness.com. And yes, it's going to be interesting just because even for me doing the research, I mean the Ayurvedic part I've done these a lot, but I've done a lot of research on these 10, of the most favorite most popular cleanses and diets out there. So it's a learning experience for myself.
Oh no, you always learn a lot when you prepare for a class.
Yeah.
Because you realize, I better know more than the students because that's why they're showing up. So I have to do some studying.
But this will also explain all the basis of Ayurveda. It's not on a PowerPoint, and because there's history, there's a bunch of things to understand about how Ayurveda is just this fascinating science. I mean, the reason that I got into Ayurveda was I was in this teacher training program from the Iyengar Institute, and the first module, because there's a module every month on anatomy or physiology, and the first one was on Ayurveda. And being a chef, trained chef, as soon as I understood, they talked about the 6 tastes: sweet, sour, salty, pungent, bitter, and astringent. All of these tastes. Have you ever been to a Indian restaurant and you've seen that round aluminum plate that has the little bowls on it? This is based in India. This is how people have a balanced meal because those represent the 6 tastes.
What are they once again?
Sweet, sour, salty, pungent, bitter, and astringent. So it's believed that you have to have these 6 tastes when you eat to have the body assimilate and work correctly digestively and elimination-wise. And as soon as I understood that there were these elements around us that related to all these foods that we ate that makes things hot and cold, and then all of these tastes are in each food, and that certain foods are, it just was like a wake-up call for me as a chef. And that's really what started my education in Ayurveda.
Yeah, that's very nice. And so you were taking the class realizing, oh my God, you can relate to it right away. You saw how it was workable right away.
Well, I went to Cordon Bleu. I mean, I've had a lot of education in the culinary arts also.
That really one of the finest of the culinary schools?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple others. There's the Art Institute now around the United States. They have culinary programs.
But Cordon Bleu, did you learn how to do a lot of cream sauces at the time?
Oh, it was all French-based. It was all French-based.
Now, is that approach to French cooking falling out of fashion?
Well, at that level, I mean, you don't find those old French restaurants very often anymore.
Because people don't really want the heavy cream sauces. No. I mean, some do, but it's not like it was, say, in the 1960s.
Yeah.
When our parents' generation, who may have seen themselves as, is the word gourmands? Is that the word? And no one even uses that term anymore. They just kind of call you a foodie now, which doesn't quite seem as lofty. But our parents' generation may have gone out for that heavy cream sauce, and now our generation figures, I don't think so. I'm not eating that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I actually worked in France for a year and a half after culinary school, and I went to a bakery school there also called Lenart, which I did that for 6 months before working in a restaurant there. And I did some traveling, and I would say that, and this was quite a while ago, but I think in France there's more nouvelle cuisine, where it's the next step. It's not from the old days of all the cream sauces and
Nouvelle cuisine meaning what exactly? Kind of new, fresh ideas?
Yeah, new and fresh ideas.
And so what's some of the new, fresh ideas in French cuisine? Just fresher food, organic or something? More herbs, more spices, more turmeric?
Well, I don't know about turmeric there, but, a lot of the most famous restaurants that are in the countryside in France are like we are now, like Chez Panisse is and I don't know if you know what Chez Panisse is.
I know the name only, yeah.
It's probably the mother of all of the restaurants that started what's this nouvelle cuisine here, or this new American cuisine, where it's really about the products that you have to use.
Yes.
It's really about what the products are.
Right.
And so it's fascinating. I actually did did a little apprenticeship there when I was still in culinary school in San Francisco, and trucks would come in, and they're from a mushroom grower somewhere in Mendocino and drop off mushrooms for the day, and then the lamb provider up in Sonoma would drop off sides of lamb. I mean, it's fascinating. And today, which is she started her business in the 70s. Now everyone does that. Alice Waters. Now everyone does that. All restaurants. In France, it's not unusual. That a lot of the vegetables and all your herbs and everything else are grown right on your own property. That you use.
Seems like a lovely idea, and obviously
a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but really it's a great product. And while that idea might never be mainstream, but still it's an idea that a lot of people are doing that. And people are going to the restaurant to support that idea because they think, we enjoy this food, we feel good on this food, we support that idea. And really it's an idea that has gained traction, I think.
Yeah.
Gained traction. Of course, the fast food guys are still around, and, they're around. But the whole fresh food movement, or some people call it a slow food movement.
Farm to table.
Farm to table is a lovely idea. Maybe it's a better term for all of that.
Yeah.
So you see yourself as part of that.
Oh, definitely. I still work even though I'm based in yoga and Ayurveda and my belief system is more towards a vegetarian sort of lifestyle, I help to run a very large catering company in Hollywood that is based in comfort foods. And that's really what people, when people go out to parties and so forth, that's really what we serve people. So.
And what's the term? What's a comfort food? As a professional chef, what is comfort food?
If I can say two things of the comfort.
Good, yeah.
Okay, macaroni and cheese would be.
Macaroni and cheese.
Well, gourmet macaroni and cheese.
Really? Oh,
well, yeah. Uh-huh. We make something that probably that's almost every menu we do for 20 years is brownie pudding. We just can't get away from it.
What's that? I don't
brownie pudding it's a pudding made. You make brownies and then you make a chocolate sauce. A cream-based sauce, and you bake it. It's a pudding made with brownies. It's extremely rich, and I owned a restaurant at one point, and
which restaurant was yours?
Well, that's a long time ago. It was called Cambria, and it was based on this farm to table. The menus changed every month based on what was available and it was in Brentwood. And as a restaurateur, you put something on your menu, and then you want to change it, and if people love it, there are certain things that just can't change on menus. They're just.
And the macaroni and cheese is one of them.
Well, not in my restaurant, but there was a salad. There were a couple things that there was no way I could take them off the menu once I introduced them because everyone wanted them all the time. But there are just certain people love certain things.
Well, Jeff, it's been fun chatting with you about healing and food and Ayurveda. Once again, where are you teaching? Where's your program?
Well, the workshop on Ayurveda and cleansing, so it's Ayurvedic cleansing and the 10 most popular cleanses and diets out there, will be on April 19th at Live Yoga Wellness in Westchester, California. And you can find that by going to liveyogawellness.com or 3seasonsayurveda.com.
3seasonsayurveda.com.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, thank you for being a guest today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's been fun. You've been listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. Please stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Thank you for tuning in to LA Talk Live, reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we're more than just talk. Stay tuned.
It started out like a totally normal day.
I love you.
I mean, I guess I was a little sweaty and I was definitely sore. I thought I had gas. Turns out I was having a heart attack. Heart disease is the #1 killer of American women. So now I take care of myself and tell the other women in my life to do the same. Make it your mission to save your life and the lives of the women you love. Find out more from the American Heart Association at goredforwomen.org.
Young Connection, your one-stop connection for all your graphic design and commercial printing needs. Young Connection is a full-service printing and media design company dedicated to providing the highest level of customer service and satisfaction. Young Connection provides swift response and rapid turnaround services for banners, brochures, business cards, letterheads, church bulletins, funeral programs, flyers, logo design, posters, and much, much more, all at an affordable price. Young Connection, the official printing company of LA Talk Live. Give them a call at 310-491-3336. That's 310-491-3336, or visit their website at www.youngconnection.com. That's www.youngconnection.com. Young Connection Printing and Media Services, proud sponsors of LA Talk Live, where it's more than just talk.
Hi, I'm Onyx Monopoly, inviting you to join me every Monday at 11 a.m. for my new show, Hooked on Onyx, spreading motivation and inspiration through wisdom, experience, and music. So don't forget to tune in to Hooked on Onyx, Mondays at 11 a.m., exclusively on latalklive.com, the LA Talk Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, TuneIn Radio, Live 365, Radio Flag, and AHA Radio, or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Broadcast Network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. It's been a great pleasure on my show to bring some of the most influential thinkers about wellness in the United States to the program here on LA Talk Live. And one of the most influential men to write about wellness is with me today. Dr. Earl Mindell is a graduate pharmacist, and he wrote the book, The Vitamin Bible, which when it appeared in 1979 was absolutely a monster book as far as sales. It sold, I think at the time, 11 million copies. Let me repeat that, 11 million copies. It's been translated, I think, to at least 30 languages. It's a book that had enormous influence. And when the book came out in 79, it was the time when nutrition did not enjoy the favor it enjoys today, when everyone thinks, oh, nutrition, of course, tell me something I don't know. It was a time when people said, really? Who cares? And Dr. Mindell, besides writing the Vitamin Bible, started the vitamin chain called Great Earth, which had a big impact as well. So one of my most important guests ever on my show here today, Dr. Earl Mindell.
Well, thank you, Josh. It's a pleasure. But, you know, it's interesting you mentioned 1979. I have a book that I brought with me called The Vitamins.
The Vitamins, yeah.
And it was actually came out in 1939. Mm-hmm. It was about, about 40 years before mine. And it is published by the American Medical Association.
I've heard of that group.
Yes,
it's a small fringe group, I think.
So it's interesting to note that back during that time, nutrition or vitamins was a big deal. In fact, a lot of people don't know this, that during the Second World War, Well, that's actually when the bombing of Pearl Harbor occurred. We were kind of caught with our pants down in a sense. We had to really start to manufacture planes and guns and tanks and ships and everything. So at the time, the government said, well, we better give our people who are doing the work a garden called a victory garden, so they could grow their own basically vegetables and fruits, so they'd be healthier and they'd have more productive work. Well, actually, at the time, they did something else that most people don't know, and that is they gave all the workers a vitamin formula called Vitamins for Victory.
Aha.
Okay. Now
the government did this. The government.
Yeah, right. Now this is 70 odd years later. We're now eating the Twinkie Ding Dong Donut Pizza Prozac Pepsi Paxil diet. And we're hearing all this on the news. Well, this is maybe not as good as this, and we don't know about that. And it's always this kind of a gray cloud over the situation. Well, I could just tell you that if we were to really start to educate our people about how to eat correctly and take supplements, I think we could save this country $1.5 trillion. It's not million, it's not a billion, but $1 trillion in unnecessary sickness costs. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Let me ask you this question of perspective. Since you have been doing this for a very long time, you are a graduate pharmacist.
Correct.
Don't you think that things are much better than they were in the 1970s, 1980s, even 1990s as far as consciousness, information, and accessibility? I mean, Whole Foods is everywhere,
Absolutely,
have a big impact. Yeah. Sprouts, Lassen's, Mother's, all the chains in Southern Florida.
No, there's no doubt about it. That's true. I used to have people yell and scream at me all the time when I was on the radio.
Really? Think you're really just a terrible person?
Well, no, not terrible person, but no, this and we don't need that. That's gone down a lot. Yes, I do agree that people are more... let's say the accessibility is much better, but we still have a long way to go.
Yes, right.
And it's too bad because let's be realistic. I think that what's happening is younger and younger children are getting diseases such as diabetes, high blood pressure, the whole thing. So we've got to do something, and I think the way to do that is to educate the public on how to take care of themselves, and it's not happening. It should happen much more. Example is the so-called new act that went into effect that they call it a health insurance. It's not health insurance. It's sickness insurance. It has nothing to do with health.
That's just true.
Well, I shouldn't say that because I think once a year or so you can go in for a wellness check free, but it should be the other way around.
Right.
So we've come a long way. I can go back to the days of when I used to go on the road in the early 80s. I would take bottled water, which would give me a
Castle Rock, yay.
It was unknown.
Right.
It was unknown. People say, what do you mean you don't drink the water from the tap?
Right. I remember those.
So that's come a long way.
I do remember those, yes.
And people say, well, people won't change. And I said, that's not true. In fact, I saw today in the USA Today that smoking is going down quite a bit, especially in the larger urban areas where, they have laws saying you can't smoke here and you have to stand 15, 20 feet away from the entrance. So we can educate the public about taking care of themselves, but it's not happening. And people say, why? Well, pretty obvious. Number one, the big pharma, the big drug companies, they don't like competition. Right. And number two, the prepared food companies don't want the public to think that their foods are not as nutritious as they should be.
Right.
And my favorite story was, I guess someone went into one of the fast food restaurants, I won't name the name, and they bought one of their special meals, whatever it was, and somehow it got lost. They forgot where it was. 6 months later, they found it, and nothing had changed. You see, scary. The organisms are not that stupid. They won't go after something that is dead. So we've got a long way to go, but I'm at the point where I think that programs like what you're doing are very important to bring this to the public, because let's be realistic that I think our diet is the number one thing we can do to benefit our health.
It does seem very simple after you know that as a concept, that what you eat not only has to taste good, And no one's going to say that Burger King or something doesn't taste good. No one would say that, but it's not necessarily your best choice. And food as a healing tool is an idea that enjoys greater currency than it did, 30 years ago for sure. People recognize it. Now, when you wrote Vitamin Bible, this is a new edition. When did this come out?
Correct. Came out about a couple of years ago.
The new edition. Okay.
The new Vitamin Bible. It's fifth edition. Up.
And how many have you sold now?
About 11 million.
Okay, 11 million. Yeah. Now, let me ask you a question. So, obviously, you, as a researcher, know a lot more than you did in 1979. We all know a great deal more.
Believe me.
And let's say you're chatting with someone who is interested in listening to you, Dr. Mindell, but they don't really know the subject. They're a little afraid, and they'll take maybe one thing. Would you recommend a good quality fish oil to start out?
Well, I think a good multiple vitamin and mineral that covers a lot of the basics is a good idea. But yes, I'm a great believer in fish oil or, of course, there's now krill oil too. Or if you're vegetarian, you go to flaxseed. I've spent quite a bit of time in Switzerland. I was on a board there for a large company, and in the morning they have flax seeds that you sprinkle over your they call it porridge, what we call oatmeal. So we don't utilize things that are quite well known in other countries. But yes, I'm a great believer in fish oils. I think that it would help tremendously because it has anti-inflammatory properties, and we're finding out that the majority of people that have problems, disease problems, it's inflammatory problems. We pretty well wiped out most of the shall we say, infectious.
Yeah, we're very good at that.
Yeah, we're pretty. Actually, we're almost too good because it's to a point now. If you get too good at wiping out the organisms, the kids can become more susceptible to them. Mm-hmm. But we've done a good job there. And I notice now that all of a sudden everybody is now using those hand wipe type things because, of course, the spread of organisms is unbelievable. In fact, I was listening on the radio this morning. They're talking about some of these tuberculosis, the new strains of tuberculosis are there's nothing that they can do about it. So we can learn, we can benefit our health, but I think diet is number one. I would say, if you ask me, I would say fish oil. I would say a probiotic, which is the good organism. I mean, and that's starting to become much better known too. Everyone's heard of antibiotics. Right. That's what this book is all about, the prescription alternatives.
Is this one of your new books too?
Yeah. We're so used to the idea of using antibiotics. Right. Well, anti means against, bios means life. It kills the good organisms as well as the bad guys, which can lead to yeast infections, etc. So if you take a probiotic, which is the good guys, on a daily basis, and first of all, it helps digestion, helps assimilation of nutrients, but also helps with your immune system. And I think that's very important because you want to have a good, strong immune system to ward off any of these incoming type of organisms.
Let me ask you a question about a multivitamin. Okay. Let's say you have a friend of yours who doesn't know nutrition but is willing to listen to you. If they take a good multivitamin mineral, what do they get? In other words, what do they feel, and when do they usually feel it?
That's a wonderful question. The problem is they don't always notice it right away. I tell people vitamins are exactly opposite of drugs. The longer you take a drug, the more chance you have of having side effects, contraindications, or toxicities. Mm-hmm. The longer you take a vitamin, the better it's going to be. So usually they'll notice they're more energy. It might take a month or so.
More energy. Yeah. That's okay, fine. That's
nails, nails, hair, and skin starts to look better.
Mm-hmm. But that's actually a lot.
Okay, well, women will go crazy for nails. Women go crazy for nails. And if you want to see a difference, you take a multiple vitamin and mineral, and all of a sudden women say, my nails are not only longer, but they're tougher, they're harder. So hair, skin, and nails, because that's the same type of, they all use this basic nutrient. What else? Well, I like coenzyme Q10.
CoQ10, right.
CoQ10, which I think is very important because, let's be realistic, the heart is a muscle. We romanticize it, wonderful with the strings and all that, but it's a muscle, and you want to keep that muscle nice and strong and make sure that it keeps beating as long as it can. Well, coenzyme Q10 does that. It strengthens the heart muscle. And for anybody out there who's taking one of the statin drugs. These are drugs that are used to lower cholesterol. They should definitely be on a coenzyme Q10 because it prevents the body from producing coenzyme Q10 in the first place.
Now, excuse me. So your parents originally settled in Canada?
Correct. I was born in Canada.
You were born in Canada.
Yep.
And so I have read this. I wonder if you can tell me if this is accurate or not, that in Canada, the Canadian version of the FDA requires the physicians, Health Canada requires their physicians to recommend, when they recommend a statin drug, that they must also recommend a CoQ10 nutrient. Correct. Because they recognize that statin drugs deplete the body of CoQ10 and causing the muscle weakness and cramping and pain.
Correct.
That is caused not from the illness but from the medication.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. In some cases, they're way ahead of us. In some cases, they're a little behind us, too. But in general, it's interesting as you travel around the world, when it comes to nutrition, it varies. I mean, I've spent a lot of time in Japan, and there, if you've ever had a Japanese breakfast,
no, I never have.
It's a incredible experience. They eat a thing called natto, N-A-T-T-O, which is a fermented soybean. It doesn't smell too good. It's stringy. It's like cheese, but it never ends. Mm-hmm. Horrible. But anyway, it's very good for you.
Is that all you get for breakfast?
that's one of the things they have for breakfast. They
no bacon?
No bacon. Okay. They eat soy foods, which, by the way, most of it is grown here in the United States and Brazil.
Oh, really?
And sent over there.
I did not know.
Yeah. So we, as a nation, have been, I think, brainwashed into thinking that the only way to get protein is to by eating either meat or dairy, which of course is nonsense. I mean, most of the world does not eat dairy and does not eat meat the way we do. Most people never think of eating soy or nuts or seeds or things like that. And of course, fish is another. Once again, why do we recommend fish oil? Because most people don't eat fish.
But humans have always been fish eaters, historically.
Absolutely. In fact, if you look at the stats, the people that live the longest in the world, the southern island of Japan, Okinawa, of course, it's naturally fish is a big staple. Soy is a big staple. Very little meat and locally grown type things. And if you go in the United States, the people that live the longest, and I'm not promoting this religion because people say I'm not doing this, but you have to look at it from a statistical point of view. The Seventh-day Adventists,
right?
They do not eat meat.
Right.
They eat soy.
Right.
They don't smoke cigarettes.
Right.
They don't drink alcohol,
right.
And they also don't drink or consume caffeinated beverages.
Right. They live longest, right?
About 8-10 years longer than the average American. People say, well, that's kind of boring. I don't think they're bored when you're not around anymore.
No, people say boring as, I think, a little bit of a joke.
Of course.
Because the average person, you can be very cavalier when you're 18 years old, but when your body's not cooperating, boy, right. It really catches you, and it doesn't give you a moment's peace. Every day, when you get to be a little older, if your body's not cooperating, you think, man, everything hurts, and I'm only 50. What am I going to be like in 10 years?
Right.
And I think people are scared. They don't know what to do, really.
Well, I think, we say boring, but when you're no longer with us and they're living longer. But it's not so much how long you live, it's the quality of life.
Right.
And I think that's the number one thing. I'm 74. I'm just a young man.
Oh, good for you.
I think. The last time I went to, I have an internist. I feel sorry for the guy. He's not doing too well. So I'm on Medicare.
No one's going on there.
Well, I'm on Medicare, so I said, I'll come around every 6 months or so. Anyway, the last time I went to see him, he said, what are you doing here? I said, well, I'm coming every 6 months. He says, I don't see very many people your age in your condition that are in good right. shape. I said, well, you don't look too hot. He said, well, I don't take very good care of myself. I said, well, look, let's be realistic. Look at your practitioner. Mm-hmm. If they're not in good shape, how do you expect them to help you be in good shape?
Okay, now I might agree with that, but really to a large extent you're making a joke because a person can have great information and not necessarily do it, right?
Right, but I want someone with good information and also is a product of the product.
Okay, I agree with you as well. Do you feel that you've had any influence in men and women who are your rough age group? Do they listen to you now as opposed to years ago kind of saying, oh, Earl, just go outside in the backyard? I mean, are people listening to you at all?
Well,
I'm talking family and friends now. They're hard to influence.
I don't know about your family, but
my family, no, they're not listening.
Most family, etc. I don't try to convert anyone. I don't try to tell anyone to do something. I just give them information. Then it's up to them. I mean,
right.
We're not going to force anyone to do anything. But unfortunately, what happens, and I think the classic story was I had a cousin that was a pediatrician, and he used to laugh at me, call me weeds and seeds or nuts and berries, and
that's kind of cute.
Yeah, he wasn't cute though, and he was, let's say, about 3 years older than I was. He had some problems with his stomach. He went to one of his buddies, an internist. They said, just take an antacid. He did that. It got worse. Finally went to Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. They did a biopsy and they found cancer that spread all through his body. And too bad, it was too late. So then he called me. And he said, how much vitamin C should I take? You see?
Okay, that's good.
Well, it's pathetic that people wait until the last minute and then they decide, an alternative. And I believe very strongly that we should have alternatives to the drugs that are being, I think, pushed down our throats. I mean, all you have to do is watch television any particular night. What do you see? You see all these drug ads, and if you listen at the end of the ad for the side effects, some of them are pretty frightening.
I know, I hear them. I always think, it always seems like a Monty Python comedy routine. And really, I think to myself, really, when people really take that medication after you hear what this downside is, it really seems like a routine to me. Now, this man who decided to ask you about vitamin C,
right.
Vitamin C is a great idea. Do you think that he originally called you, nuts and berries because he felt that he's an MD, therefore was that the attitude 20, 30 years ago?
Not so much that he knows more. He knows nothing. You see, that's the problem.
That's true.
No, it's very simple. I don't, begrudge them. They're not taught anything about nutrition, and they get most of their knowledge in hospitals. And if you want to have bad nutrition, that's the place to go.
Right. That's true. A lot of people say that. Right.
It's too bad. When you really need nutrition, when you're a debilitated situation, I wouldn't be caught dead in a hospital.
Right.
So I don't think it's really a matter of knowing more. It's just that it's too bad that we've delegated our authority of sickness to other people. But when it comes to health, I think we should take the responsibility of our health in our own hands.
Right.
And I'm very happy to see that at least it's coming over more and more that people should be aware of what they're doing to themselves. Unfortunately, this country is far down the line when it comes to health, far down the line.
Well, we do lead in some areas. I mean, really, the whole organic food movement, I think we've been pretty progressive there. Exercise, we've been pretty progressive. Anti-smoking, we led the Europeans. The Europeans have caught up now, but the Europeans were like a decade behind us, and now they're kind of catching up.
Well,
so America's done a lot.
I agree. When it comes to smoking, we're way up there.
Yeah.
But organic is still a very small percent of the population, and you gotta
about 1%, I think. Actually.
Yeah, well, see, you gotta look. Here's what I say to people: get on a freeway. I don't care where you are, especially here in Southern California, and go for about an hour and then get off. That's America. It's not where you think it is. It's not the well-to-do. Because naturally, if you're well-to-do or you're more educated, you're more into the idea of taking care of yourself. And
yes.
I feel we got to get down to the grassroots and help everybody. And we can do that. It's only a matter of teaching people. For instance, many of the so-called areas that are low income, you can't even find fresh vegetables or fruit.
Right.
It's unknown.
That's true. But there are movements in some of the impoverished areas towards community gardens.
Well, that's the Victory Garden. 70 years later, it's in fact, Michelle Obama, our First Lady, is trying to do that. And I'm all in favor of that. They should be able to have a little plot of land where they grow their own fresh fruits and vegetables.
No, there are movements even in areas that are blighted areas. There are yoga schools. There are karate schools.
Yep.
I mean, there is an interest. There is definitely an interest. Now, you've been on many influential shows during your career. You did Oprah in the early 80s. You did a lot of important shows.
I did everybody.
You did everybody. And would you want to give us a prediction over the next 5 years? I mean, how much bigger will the wellness thing get? Will it get way bigger?
Yes. And I'll tell you what, I think both of us were at the show. There was just Whole Food Expo in Orange County a couple of weeks ago. There were 60,000 people, I guess, in the 3 days. In fact, I've heard it's so large now that they have to move it to another venue, like maybe Las Vegas. So it is growing. And if you notice, the people that were there, a lot of people from around the world. It wasn't just the United States. I think this thing is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, only because the middle class is emerging in a lot of these countries around the world. And they want a better quality of life. And we have extended life expectancy because we've got rid of most of the childhood diseases, infections, etc. But I think our potential is probably 120 plus.
Right.
Of good quality life.
So theoretically, in your opinion, the average man or woman who's paying some attention to wellness, eating carefully, exercising, cleaner environment, can make it, in your opinion, to 120.
Well, I'd say 100, at least 100. Easily, in good shape. After that, it's strictly, I think you got to work. I mean, anything else.
Right.
You got to work at being healthy. It's easy to be sick. Don't do anything. I mean, it's going to happen.
That's right. I think the person who they feel has lived longest with documentation is a French woman who made it to 122. So we know that you can live to 122 because this woman's already lived to 122. And now, almost every month, there's one or two people who are 114 or 115 or 116, and then they pass away, and then another couple people are 114, 115, 116. So we're seeing a number of people like that around, and I'm guessing that in 10 or 20 years, maybe there'll be hundreds of people or thousands of people that age, and then there'll be a few who are like 121, 122, 123. I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
But I think that's doable. I don't think that's science fiction. I think that's no. And when we say, 116 to 120, we're talking about they're not going to be playing football, but they would be alert and clear, hopefully, and and enjoying their lives.
Yeah, I think that's true. But once again, it's not so much how long you live; it's really the quality of life. And if you spend the last 10 or 15 years of your life with all these degenerative diseases,
isn't any fun?
Debilitating diseases, that's not what it's all about. In the book Prescription Alternatives, I try to bring out alternatives that have been known forever. In fact, in the green room there, we were talking about honey.
Honey, right.
It's amazing to me that most people don't ever even think of it as a food. It's the only food I know that does not spoil. They found actually honey in a vat in the pyramids. So it's been around a long time. But the Russians used it as they call it Russian penicillin for wound healing, etc. So it has a lot of benefits.
You're talking raw honey, though.
Raw. Oh, I'm talking about raw. I'm not talking about that stuff you see in the little squeezy stuff, because that's so processed that it's like processed milk. This has got to get the real stuff. But if you do get that and bring it into your diet, I don't think you need to use all these artificial sweeteners and all the other stuff. And that's what's happening. We were so hung up on the idea of using artificial sweeteners, and yet we're still eating a tremendous amount of sugar. In fact, it's pretty well now known that sugar is the major cause of our problems, not fat.
And do you think that many people, that statement of yours about how problematic the use of processed sugar is pretty much accepted as mainstream? I saw it on 60 Minutes. They did a segment, 20 minutes on 60 Minutes, about how damaging sugar was. And when I saw that, I thought to myself, wow, I've lived long enough to see this presentation.
It's becoming mainstream, but see, the problem is most of it is hidden, and we don't know that. I mean, people drink a liter of soft drink, and they don't realize there might be 16 or 18 teaspoons of sugar.
Right.
So we think in terms of sugar as adding it to food, adding it to our coffee, but it's all hidden in the product. And I tell people, look for OSE, which tells you it's one of the sugars, lactose, fructose, etc. But there's about 32 ways you can call sugar in the United States and get away with it.
Right.
And it's listed in descending order. But if you put them all together, they become the majority of the product.
Right. I was reading one particular book, and the author called soda liquid candy.
It is.
And I thought to myself, well, that seems very fair. That's exactly what it is. And I think there's been a big movement to recommend that people not drink soda. And I remember that when Mayor of New York City, Bloomberg, commented on sodas, he wanted to
He got a lot of flack.
Yeah, which, of course, to ban a big soda seems a little silly because you can't really implement it.
Well, not only that, but you got to drink two small ones. Right. It's a beginning.
It is a beginning. And also I did notice that in the popular press, he wasn't treated as though he was just some dummy.
No.
People didn't say, oh, soda's good for you. No one defended soda. They said, you can't really implement that, and really you couldn't. So it was a little bit of overreaching, I think. But really, no one said, well, he has no right to say soda's bad for you. They didn't treat him that way.
No, because it's a known fact. But it's the number one probably source of sugar. But if you look at your labels, and I tell people, spend the time to read labels when you go grocery shopping. You'll probably save 40% of your bill, because a lot of the products that you were going to buy, you won't buy.
Right. Well, we've been chatting with Dr. Earl Mindell. Dr. Mindell, thank you for being a guest on my show.
My pleasure. You're welcome.
And Dr. Mindell, where can we contact you?
Well, I have a website, just DR for Dr. Mindell, MINDELL.com. Or also have, you want it on AOL, I'm available on AOL, just Dr. Mindell at AOL.com.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
My pleasure.
You've been listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Broadcast Network. My guest has been Dr. Earl Mindell. My name is Josh Lane. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Have you been struggling for the answers to life's challenges? Of course you have. Now, for the first time ever, you can ask, what's your life purpose? Or how to attract your soulmate, and more. Next weekend, all day Saturday, March 29th, 2014, at the Modern Day Prophet event. It's the first of its kind, with angel readers, astrologers, neurologists, physicists, and many more. Email kecinfo@yahoo.com. Now, the first 10 emails get a free ticket for listening to LA Talk Live Radio. All other emails will get a 2-for-1 ticket. All proceeds benefits all the sick children from the Make a Film Foundation. Once again, that email is kecinfo@yahoo.com. For the link to the event's website, your free ticket, or your 2-for-1 ticket for listening to LA Talk Live right away. Space is limited.
Hi, this is Tim Alexander. I'm the filmmaker that gave you Diary of a Retired Black Man. I want you to come and join me every Thursday at 5 p.m. for my brand new show, What Would My Daddy Say? Yep. I have a show where I'm going to stand in as your father, because so many people grow up without a father, and they need that fatherly advice because mothers say things a little bit different. This is a call-in show, so I'm going to help you with all those messy situations. That's every Thursday at 5 p.m. What Would My Daddy Say? Exclusively on latalklive.com. Real Freedom Radio, where we can say what we like. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Radio Flag, TuneIn Radio, Live 365, AHA Radio, TiVo Radio, and Apple TV Radio, or just watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk. And Daddy's home.
Host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, wellness editor Yvonne Beauvais.
Hello and good day. I have a wonderful guest with me today, and I've known Per Anderson for 5 years now, and I have been witnessed this product kind of from the inception, even from the days of the labeling, and it is probably one of the most profoundly effective products that I've come across in my searches as a wellness editor and as a wellness correspondent. So, Per, what's the most important thing that you would like to talk about to our audience today?
Well, Yvonne, that's a very difficult question to answer, but you have to go back to basics and understand that change is possible. Healing is, sometimes we feel very boxed in. And to recognize in the midst of that difficult situation that fundamentally there is the possibility to change. And then to really, how do you approach it? And the product we have goes back to basics. Recognizing what I like to call the Lincoln Logs of life. And there's a long story behind that, but when I was a kid, years ago, I played with Lincoln Logs. The next generation played with Legos. And, you know, it's basically a building block out of which you make things. And I think that fundamentally, in order to understand ourselves, we need to understand what is our building block. What's the Lincoln log of our body? Okay, and if you can begin to understand that, and what I'm going to say is that water, the water molecule, is the Lincoln log of life. Because your body is essentially 70% water molecules. And the question to ask yourself is, the condition of the water molecule, what difference does it make? And that relates to this other issue, which we'll get to, is pH, potential of hydrogen. And our product is all about pH. It's all about addressing the issues of the water, the Lincoln logs of our body.
Well, that is something that I think that over even the last 15 years in the wellness industry, people have become increasingly aware of water. We talk about structured water. We talk about alkaline water. We have bottled water. Water, we don't go any place without water. So water has been a profound it's been a profound understanding of how important it is to life. I even remember watching experiments where they would microwave water and then they would have good water and they'd water the plant with microwave water and with good water, and 1 week later the plant with microwave water would die. So yes, we know that water is important and the structure of water is very important. So what we have here today is a product that's going to address the water or the potential hydrogen inside the human body. So people are conditioned to an understanding and a way to take care of their health. Women, you and I are both, we were conditioned. I was certainly conditioned to growing up here in this country is what I thought was the correct way to take care of my health. And in the end, found out that it wasn't, and I became very ill. So what attitudes do you think that people need to adopt, or attitudes that they need to let go of to understand that there are other paths that they can take in today's world?
We all tend to have a problem in doing anything and ever changing, because what we think or what we understand controls us. And a lot of times what we understand, our mindset, is a subconscious thing. We don't understand. People for years told me, don't eat white bread. Well, I liked white bread. Okay, and to me, I thought, what difference? I feel good after I eat it. And that kind of thinking is based on an absolute ignorance of the body. Now, we don't have to become scientists or doctors, but we need to understand that our body is incredibly sophisticated. It knows what to do. Most of the time, we hammer it so badly with it has to do gymnastics to deal with the food, because we've lost perspective on what we're supposed to feed ourselves, and we don't even know it. So it's like we're in a pit of ignorance. No offense meant, but we don't even know. And I'll speak to myself. I mean, if I go back 10 years and just look at where I was mentally towards how I understood my body, frankly, for many years been abusive to myself, not knowing it, just not knowing it. And one of the worst things I've done is what I call, I've lived in chronic dehydration and not known it. Not having enough water. Your body is a very radical plumbing system. Radical. In fact, there is essentially 60,000 miles of plumbing in your body. If you take the from the large arteries down to your capillaries, you've got 60,000. So if you stop to think about that, you say, okay, what difference does certain things, certain actions take? And I'll tell you one thing. If you don't drink enough water, your body, being as sophisticated as it is, says, okay, I'm not getting enough. I'm going to switch off valves here and there, and I'm going to reroute the water you're giving me to the essential. And I'm going to chronically not route the water you need. And guess what? After a few decades of that, Why do we have arthritic this and that? There's so many things that have to do. In fact, brain function, a whole bunch of things related to just water. Water is this mystical, wonderful thing of life that we have to be aware of. We are mostly water, a creature.
My father, before he passed away, grew up in a generation that somehow didn't believe in drinking water, and we couldn't get him to drink water. And in effect, we watched the brain dehydrate and the vision deteriorate and all of those things for lack of water.
Yeah.
And you're right, and I've realized if you're dehydrated, you feel lightheaded, you spin out. The blood is going to take from every part of your body to ensure it keeps its proper pH. It'll take your calcium, it'll take your water,
Absolutely.
It'll take everything to keep functioning.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Balance 7, because this is your product, and I happen to know the story behind this, which is a pretty fascinating story. Tell me, Per, how you got started with this. And I know Al Simon is the innovator
Absolutely.
of the product, and I had the pleasure of meeting him and actually staying with he and his wife years ago. And please, I would love to hear this from you so that our listening audience and our viewing audience can hear this today.
Well, it's an interesting story. Sometimes you think of how things happen. You need to get almost years of perspective. Say, how did that ever happen? And this is a long story. Frankly, Al Simon, 50 years ago, came up with the essential formula that we now call Balance 7. He didn't know what it was at the time, but he's a very unique, wonderful man who basically thinks outside the box. He began to analyze it, and for decades, it went off and on the shelf, but for decades was analyzing it. After a while, he got tired of trying to explain to people what these unique things he was discovering, and he spent a lot of money validating, and the scientific research came back validating many of his claims. But honestly, essentially what we discovered is what we have is a high pH alkaline water, 11.2, that's as benign as water to drink. And the impact on the body is it produces, if taken properly, it produces an alkaline tide in the body. It does it simply, it does it fast. You don't need to drink 80 ounces of water to get the impact.
Oh, that's a lot.
So if you can, in a very disciplined way, take 1 ounce 3 times a day, you'll help your body deal with acidic crisis or acidic issues that it's dealing with.
For our audience today, would you tell us about alkaline tide? That's a very interesting concept, and I'm sure you can provide a wonderful metaphor to give people a visual as to what that means.
Well, I'm not sure which metaphor you're thinking of, but
you're good at that, though.
if you Google alkaline tide, you'll get a quick description. But essentially, once you eat food, your body, of course, has acidity in the stomach to deal with that.
Right.
And that's the purpose of it. Now, in order for your stomach, the acid cells in your stomach to produce the acidity, there's a natural chemical byproduct. It's producing a high acid. The natural opposite side of the chemical equation, which gets deposited in your bloodstream, is bicarbonates. So when you eat, when you mitigate the acidity, your stomach will reacidify. When it reacidifies, it produces a byproduct, not a bad byproduct, a very good byproduct, an alkalinity. Okay, so when it does that, you have this alkaline tide within your bloodstream. They call it an alkaline tide. Now your small intestine will digest your food, and there's kind of a rematching of acidity and alkalinity, so this tide gets kind of balanced. But the trick is this: when you're fighting acidity in your body, which is in most cases, most illnesses, diseases, etc., are acidic crises. Essentially it is. I mean, you talk about cancer. I mean, it's just incredibly understanding to study what's happening, when you have cancer and how acidic it is. But you're fighting this acidic crisis. What we need to do is fight the acidity. Now, Balance 7, taken properly, will give you additional alkaline tides to basically wash through your system and hit those hot spots of acidity. It's like the body needs a relief. there's other analogies for this, but when you're under attack, the one thing is to stop the attacker so you can rebuild. The body needs to the offensive, the acidity that's attacking the body to be mitigated, and that's what properly used Balance 7 does.
So American lifestyle, I realize, is a great contributor to this acidosis condition that we're talking about. So we have a high consumption of coffee. A little coffee I don't think hurts anybody. Yeah. We have a high protein diets in this particular, we're changing. We are more fruits and vegetables. Yeah. We have chemicals, we have GMOs, we have pesticides, we have horrible particulates in our atmosphere, we have water that's acidic, and it goes on and on. So we're actually being overwhelmed by an acid condition.
Absolutely.
Beyond the acid that's in our stomach. So it's changing our whole chemistry.
Yeah.
And because of that acidosis, we are becoming sick, because sickness and fungi and molds and yeasts and cancers and bacteria and viruses all thrive in an acidosis condition.
Absolutely.
So what we're talking about is reversing the acidosis condition so the body can heal itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. So what do you think the greatest need is? And we just talked about some of that right now in using Balance 7.
Well, to me, it's understanding the battle. There's no cure-all that I know of, and this isn't a cure-all. On the other hand, when you need a helping hand at a critical moment, if you're at sea adrift and someone throws you a life ring, that's what you need.
Right.
Because, they could teach you swimming lessons. That's not what you need. You need life. If you're having an acidic crisis, there are several things in life you need to do. For one thing, what caused it, lifestyle, eating patterns, exercise, all kinds of things. But changing them in that moment, that decision needs to be made. But what helps you get on your feet again? What helps you begin the battle? Mm-hmm. Especially when you're having a crisis.
Right.
And that's where I believe the strength of Balance 7 is. It'll help fight the crisis. What people need to really all of us need to remember is health is a mental issue. We need to understand the battle. Mm-hmm. And in particular, we need to understand this acidity thing. Because if we do, we can begin to take the baby steps that are necessary to adjust our life. And again, remember, it's doable. It's not a Mount Everest.
Right.
It's doable. But as we let things get into our mind and begin to adopt them, one at a time, two at a time, three at a time, we'll begin to experience it. And suddenly we'll say, this wasn't so impossible. Yes. But at the moment when you're flat on your back, you need something to help you get started. Balance 7 is an acidic crisis management tool. Mm. Acidic crisis management tool.
Remember that, everybody. Acidic crisis management tool. That's important to remember.
It helps you fight the battle when the fire is burning. It helps. Think of acidity as a fire burning, which is. And then how do you quench it? Where's the fire extinguisher?
Because the body wants to heal itself. We were created for balance. Our bodies have a natural propensity to want to bring balance and healing to the organism.
Right.
They're not meant to live in this inflamed condition that most people are in today's world. And this is global. I just came back from Peru, and when I was there, cancer is very high over there, and the maladies that we're experiencing in this country, because they've become westernized in what they're doing, and products have been taken into the country, they're suffering in the same way right now. So I saw the same things going on there that were particularly more an agrarian culture, and they've changed, and I saw the fast food chains there, and I see people sick the same way that they are here.
I'm telling you, we need to understand basic things and just make corrective. I've done a fair amount of work in Africa, and in particular, we began our major push in Africa with our product. Clean Shield is.
Tell us about Clean Shield, because I know this is this is where I came in when you were getting ready to take this into Africa. So I came in the picture.
Well, I have a wonderful. Al Simon had a passion to help deal with health, and he just believed passionately that it would help. And he asked. He's had a lifelong love of Africa, and he thought, where in the world do I see the greatest needs on health? And I have a Nigerian business partner who, wonderful person, and somebody who is passionate about her country and helping deal with health issues and people there. We offered Al an avenue to go to Africa, and we have over 1 million bottles sold. We have stories streaming from all over Nigeria and even some surrounding countries.
I've read some of the testimonies. They've knocked out malaria in 4 days and left the person immune to malaria with this. This is the same product, by the way, everybody. Balance 7 is here in the United States, and Clean Shield is what is over in Africa right now.
Exactly.
So just know that we're talking about the same product here.
You know, I sat down with a young man named Chris, who for 5 years back in the beginning had been giving it to people. We made samples available, and he said after a while they started to treat them like a clinic, and when they ran out, people would be at the gates crying.
Oh my God.
And the story he tells, first I asked him, I said, what really sold you on this? You know, this just looks like water. What really sold you? Well, he said right in the beginning, he said we went to a man whose body was half covered with warts and had tried for years to deal with the issue. After a few weeks of consuming Balance 7 or Clean Shield and a topical application, the problem went away.
Oh my goodness.
The man was in tears saying, where has this been? At any rate, Chris said this was the turning point in his mind, that this was something unique. And then he said over the 5 years he could 2,000 different applications. Towards the end of the interview, I said, Chris, I try to get balanced. I said, Chris, tell me an area where you've just found this doesn't have an impact balancing the pH.
Right.
That doesn't have an impact. And he looked at me and said, you know, I can't think of an area. He said, the issue is not what area it can help, but how to apply it. But anyway, that was, you know, a rather interesting testimonial from him.
You just answered my next question. I was going to ask you, what impact does this bring to a person's sense of health and well-being? Well, my goodness, if you're covered in warts, I mean, I can't imagine on every level how that would make a person feel, just the shame and the feeling untouchable and not wanting anybody to look at them and nobody wanting to deal with them, wondering if they're contagious. I mean, that had to be a nightmare of an experience to live through.
Right.
And to have relief come to you because of something that you drank, which actually can only benefit your body. And to my understanding, there's no contraindications to taking Balance 7. It doesn't interfere if someone's even taking a medication. There's no interference with it.
Right.
So it is a benign substance that has a very powerful and effective effect on the human body.
Well, it really points back to the danger of acidity, which points back to the danger of a bad diet, which points back to many mistakes we make, which we do need to correct.
Right.
But you see, we just have to understand it's not as impossible a thing as we make it out to be. I mean, you know, people say, well, if I can't have my McDonald's and fries, what am I going to do?
Right.
When you really get down to it, there are some extraordinary things you can eat once you get into it, and you actually feel good after it.
Right. Like greens, because greens are very alkalizing.
Absolutely. In fact, when you're listening, when you start to experience your body talking back to you and saying, thank you very much, I really appreciated that, and you feel your energy boost, then you begin to think, well, you know what? I didn't have to take a pill for that.
Right.
And if you kind of combine a number of things like that, certainly you're setting your body free to live and do the way it's meant to. I read a book by a guy that just kind of blew my mind, and it's kind of out there. In the beginning, I used to think anti-aging was a selling gimmick. But in all the research that's happened the last 20, 25 years, it's not hype. If you really understand, they're discovering things about the body that really make a difference. And this guy was talking about the metabolic curve, the life curve. And he kind of, traditionally, you're at around 28 or whatever, you're at the high point of the curve. You hit to 40, and it's diving. Time you get to 60, 65, you know, you're kind of getting the lower percentage of the curve.
Right.
The fact is, that statement, 70 is the new 40.
Yes.
It's not so far out as you make, if you actually take this seriously, take your body seriously. Right. Your body wants to be well.
Because we all want to be purposeful and productive to the very ends of our lives.
Absolutely.
I know we have some really interesting stories to share. I also took this 5 years ago. I was struggling with mercury poisoning. And baby boomers, there seems to be a certain age, and it could be 45, it could be 50, where all of a sudden everything bad, we'll just qualify, just say bad, that you ever did to your body all of a sudden shows up. If you did drugs, if you drank too much, if you ate wrong, if you didn't exercise, eyes, if you had amalgams in your mouth and you had mercury, there seems to be a trigger point in the human body where the immune system is affected by it, and boom, it's like you quickly just start to go downhill.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen in more people than not. Mm-hmm. So many things we do when we're young we think won't catch up with us. I'm here to tell you it does. It does catch up with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went through a very severe detox. Mm-hmm. Taking it and coming out the other side was amazing. Mm-hmm. And I was so happy that I met Al all those many years ago, because that was my introduction to the product.
Right.
But you have some really interesting stories that you have a story of a quarterback, which I thought was fascinating, and the kitten story. And the kitten story is powerful. So you tell whichever one you want to tell first.
Okay, well, I'll tell the quarterback story first. I love sports and watch football a lot. Met a guy named, what's his name here? The Sonny, and he played for the 49ers in the 70s. After retired, he had problems with his knees that developed, arthritic problems, and he fought it for years. Cortisone shots.
Ooh.
Sonny Brazil
Okay.
is the name of the guy. Sorry. And he met Al. Al said, "Here, take
Try
Balance
this."
7." Within 2 weeks, that chronic arthritic problem went away. And frankly, he's prescribed it to friends of his in the industry, semi-pros, and it has a tremendous benefit, because arthritis is related to acidity, excess acidity. And he found it very helpful. So that's the one testimony. You ready for the kitten?
Oh, this was the most profound story. I looked at all the pictures 1 through 6 of this kitten, and I went, oh my goodness. So go for it, Per. Tell us about the kitten.
I don't know if I could have paid this lady $10,000 to produce a story as good as this. This came unsolicited through email. This lady spends her time, well, must be a lovely lady who loves cats and kittens, and she rescues them. Well, she had a kitten that her friend said, "You better put this one down," a fatal eye virus. Just highly infected, blind, and it's a disease that they don't ever get their sight back.
Oh my.
And her friend said, "You better put this one down." Well, someone had just given her some Balance 7 and said that it was helpful. So she said, "Let me give it 3 days." So 24/7, she soaked the eyes. She injected a few milliliters into the stomach, which was full of worms. A little bit later in the process, she put in the ears, where it was full of ear mites. And the story she tells will blow your mind. And she blogged it. In fact, I'll read a little bit of it. "I rescue sick, injured, homeless cats and recently found an 8-week-old kitten that was diagnosed with a fatal virus. Good friend of mine gave me a little Balance 7 to give orally. Day 1. I'm taking pictures of a kitten which are so upsetting to look at that people are in tears of viewing it. But if Balance 7 is as good as they say, I want before and after pictures. Day 2. The kitten is still alive. She still looks and sounds terrible, but instead of lying flat on her back, unable to get up, she's in a crouched position. Day 3. She's in a sitting position, taking a few steps on her own. Day 4. And she purrs. I'm starting to see the miracle of this kitten needed. I'm in awe now. She's eating on her own. Her eyes are still closed and white, and I'm accepting that she will be blind at this point, but she's alive and improving by the hour. It's okay that she is blind, because she is in her forever home with me here. Okay, no way I can trust anyone else with this kitten. Day 5. To my belief, the milky white cloud in her right eye is starting to fade, and I can see a slight shape of a pupil starting to appear. Day 6. I was right. Her right eye is open and today is color in a full pupil. And then she describes when she did the ear mites. Day 7. Let there be sight. The left has a hint of color. This is unreal. Kittens this young do not recover from this virus, and the ones that do are blind. Rachel is neither dead or blind. So here's the story that just...
It was profound.
Well, then she sent pictures to boot, which is basically like, was astonishing. But and again, it's the human system, the sophistication of our system left alone. But things we do impede on what our body wants to do. And I'm sorry, acidity is one of those things. And a whole nother subject is the things we do that contribute to acidity.
Yes.
That's a whole other subject, and that has to be addressed if you're really going to deal
with
another
show.
deal with life issues. But what tools can you use to help along the way? That's what we're talking about.
Smooth Skin, another product which is a little bit stronger than the product that you drink. I do use this, I'll confess. I do like it. I use it morning and night. And I found it really interesting when I first started to use it. Aging actually takes place under the skin because there's so many accumulated toxins from products that men and women might use on their skin. And I actually could smell an off-gassing coming out of my skin. And I went, oh, wow, what's that? And it's a fabulous product.
Yeah.
So these are all products that are derived out of the same formulation.
Okay.
Okay, Per, I would like for you to tell our listening audience today and viewing audience how they can contact you.
Well, we would love to introduce Balance 7 to you. Call our get on the come to our website.
Okay.
It's balance7-la.com. Read up on more about what we've been talking about, and go to our contact page, and there'll be instructions how to get a hold of us.
So they have your phone number and email.
Absolutely.
And everything is on there. One more time, tell them your website. One more time.
It is it's balance7-la.com.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you so much, Per, for being with us today. To me, this is a very exciting product in a time and day. It's actually the time has arrived for a product like this. My name is Yvonne Beauvais. I'm your wellness correspondent, and I'm co-host to Josh Lane on Here's to Your Health with LA Talk Live. Always keeping my finger on the pulse of new and innovative products and services in the health and wellness industry. Thank you so much, Per. What a delight. Just wonderful.
Privilege.
So I have more people that are interested in wanting to use and to
Are we having fun yet?
Yes, no, about Balance 7.
Absolutely.
And I'm truly a believer. So
yeah, it'll be fun to work with to work with you and to continue to hear stories.
It's probably one of the most effective products that I've actually found that really.
Well, it's to some degree it's a rescue tool, and then it's a maintenance tool. It's both. And if you learn how to use it.
Rescue and maintenance. I like that.
And
rescue and maintenance. That's
and then
excellent.
Figure out what else we're supposed to be doing.
So we didn't even get into how to say we take it 3 times a day, 1 ounce 3 times a day.
Absolutely.
So that would be like a shot glass, I suppose.
Exactly. It's
1 ounce
funny.
3 times a day. Do you take it with food or apart from food?
Apart from food. Should have emphasized that.
Okay.
On an empty stomach.
On an empty stomach.
Yes.
And that's the best way.
On an empty stomach.
And if someone has to take a medication, there's no contraindication with that.
No.
And you can put it topically on your body.
Absolutely.
I have somebody who had a swimmer's rash. Would it work for swimmer's rash?
Yes. You spray, dry. Less is more. Don't overdo it. And spray and dry.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So, I guess the world is the limit at this point.
Oh yeah, we have big plans.
I can't think of a country around the world right now that couldn't use a product like this. Because I travel, I do see the condition of people's health, and most people are in an acidosis condition these days.
A normal condition.
Yes, I see autoimmune disorders. I see high levels of cancer. I see all of those things.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to LA Talk Live, reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we're more than just talk. Stay tuned.
Have you been struggling for the answers to life's challenges? Of course you have. Now, for the first time ever, you can ask, what's your life purpose? Or how to attract your soulmate, and more. Next weekend, all day Saturday, March 29th, 2014, at the Modern Day Prophet event. It's the first of its kind, with angel readers, astrologers, neurologists, physicists, and many more. Email KEC info@yahoo.com. Now, the first 10 emails get a free ticket for listening to LA Talk Live Radio. All other emails will get a 2-for-1 ticket. All proceeds benefits all the sick children from the Make a Film Foundation. Once again, that email is kecinfo@yahoo.com. For the link to the event's website, your free ticket, or your 2-for-1 ticket for listening to LA Talk Live right away. Space is limited.
It started out like a totally normal day.
I love you.
I mean, I guess I was a little sweaty and I was definitely sore. I thought I had gas. Turns out I was having a heart attack. Heart disease is the #1 killer of American women. So now I take care of myself and tell the other women in my life to do the same. Make it your mission to save your life and the lives of the women you love. Find out more from the American Heart Association at goredforwomen.org.
Hi, this is Dr. Levi, your fitness doctor, making a personal house call, inviting you to join me Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific for my all-new show, The Dr. Levi Show. Join us as we discuss fitness, health, and well-being, including emotional and spiritual health. So don't forget to tune in to The Dr. Levi Show every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes, Radio R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv, or catch us on the Live 365 network, and now on Radio Flag and Stitcher Radio. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Broadcast Network. Your host is Dr. Hans Kugler, author of the first book on anti-aging in 1974. And now here's Dr. Hans Kugler.
Welcome back to Here's to Your Health at LA Talk Live. And we are definitely more than just talk. And today we have a really magnificent guest that I wanted to have on the show for a very long time, Dr. Hyla Cass, MD, psychiatrist. Hyla, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Yeah. You finally got me.
Yeah, I finally got you. Well, we've known each other for many, many years, right? Through some of the anti-aging medicine meetings, American Academy Anti-Aging Medicine, and so on and so on. And as a matter of fact, well, I may as well tell this. Several years ago, I was at an A4M meeting, and I asked Ron Klotz, right, the president of A4M, I said, who's that cute blonde over there? Oh, that's Hyla Cass. She's an MD. She's a psychiatrist. You ought to get to know her. And then we got to know each other a little bit, you know. Anyway, everybody was talking very highly about you.
Thank you.
You know, I mean, the many people that, you know, I met, were connected with, and so on. And somewhat, you know, once you get off the scene and off the stage, you know, oh, they say something about this guy and whatever. No, they never said anything negative about you.
That's such a relief.
Well,
I'm so happy.
Yeah. Anyway, and Hyla wrote a magnificent book, 8 Weeks to Vibrant Health, right? And today, we just basically want to talk a little bit about your approach to health, because it's different from one person to another, right? I mean, it depends what kind of work you're in. For me, it's more down-to-earth facts about anti-aging, right? I'm very happy to say that some of the longevity studies that I did at Roosevelt University in Chicago a long time ago, I sometimes say, oh, I just moved here from Chicago. No, it was over 30 years ago. Anyway, yeah. But the nice thing was when we did our longevity studies, which culminated in putting cancer-prone animals that are getting cancer at the same rate than humans, one group under all the wrong conditions, and another group under all the correct conditions. And the wrong conditions means, I mean, stress cages and relatively bad diet, a little bit of high sugar, high fat, no supplements. But the key part here was no exercise and cigarette smoke blown through the cages.
So standard American diet and lifestyle.
Yeah. And then the other animals, they were made to do things right, but with the exercise, we allowed them to build up their own level. That's very important, because if you take test animals and you put them in a rotating drum or something and you make them do exercise, very often they will die faster because you're putting them too much under stress. Yeah. So you let them do it. This is a rotating drum, and you have 10, 15 animals in there, and they somewhat agree on, we're going to walk in this direction and walk a little bit faster, slower, and so on. And naturally, no cigarette smoke and so on. But the key point in all of these experiments was that my then mentor, Professor Emanuel Cheraskin from Alabama University School of Medicine, right? I worked with him on several projects. We were in several meetings together. He predicted that we would get 100% difference in our average lifespans. And I said, well, anyway, we got 96%. Wow. But the interesting part was a lot of people said, come on, 100%, it's impossible, and so on. Even so, we had it published, peer-reviewed. Still, there was a lot of objection to, come on, this can't be, right? Now, we also did this experiment over again without the exercise in the positive group. And guess what happens? Everything drops by 50%. 50%? That's a hell of a lot. And guess what? In the last 4 or 5 years, 2 groups, including one in Germany, confirmed our research data, and more data are coming out to emphasize the importance of exercise. Like, for example, what is the strongest factor in preventing cognitive losses? It's not just exercise, it's muscle exercise, weightlifting, right? What is the strongest factor in maintaining telomere length, or those little extensions of the DNA molecule? Again, exercise, right? Mm-hmm. And so anyway, we're very happy along those lines, And but let's get back to you here. I recently learned that you were somewhat involved with another project with a good friend of ours, Dr. Mary Susser.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about it.
Well, what we're doing is treating addiction very differently from how it's treated in the community. Mm-hmm. People go into addiction treatment centers because they're addicted to drugs, alcohol, and we're hearing a whole lot about OxyContin and all these really bad medications that start out being okay medications. Somebody's recovering from surgery, they're put on a medicine for a little while, but these have become addictive substances. And they're even, the sad thing is that even people that are taking it for good medical purposes end up addicted. Mm-hmm. So we have a real problem here with addiction. And the other problem is that the addiction treatment centers treat it as if, people have control over it. They just have to get over it and have some willpower. Mm-hmm. And the other is treating this drug addiction with other drugs, which, as we know, are not the root solution. They're not addressing the root cause, and they're adding more stress to the body. This poor body that's been having all this alcohol, drugs, the liver having to detox, and we know what the liver has to go through, especially in our present environment where we're just taxing our liver to the hilt. So not a good thing. So what we've been doing, and I've been doing this for quite a few years, is I'm actually treating addiction with nutrients, actually reversing the cravings, reversing the depletion of neurotransmitters. Those are the good chemicals that make your brain happy and make it work properly and give you memory.
Serotonin, dopamine, and all this kind of good stuff.
That's exactly right. Make
Very important for anti-aging.
So in order to do that, you need to be... In order to restore your neurotransmitters, you need to have the right nutrients. First of all, of course, you need to have good diet. You can't be eating crap and take vitamins and think that that's going to work. No. But you take, you have a good diet, and of course you exercise, but the key here is nutrients to restore your brain chemistry. And I've been doing this for many years. In fact, I developed some products along those lines that actually help do that. My brain recovery, AM and PM, my brain cell support. In fact, it's actually used by some addiction treatment centers to help modify the person's brain chemistry. And you don't have to be a rocket science or a chemist to understand this. This is basic stuff. And what we have added lately, what I've added with Dr. Susser, is we're doing this intravenously. And what we have found with the intravenous treatment is that in a few days, cravings are gone. The person feels like they've woken up. I had one guy, he was an alcoholic, who was quite out of it. By the third day, he said, I can't believe this. He says, I have been in so many rehabs, and it's a revolving door. It's one after another. These poor people, not so poor drug treatment centers, because they're making a lot of money here. They're charging a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And, I know. I can't fault the staff. They're doing what they've been told to do. And the doctors are actually prescribing as they've been taught. Everyone's doing the right thing. It's just not working. So
I agree.
I mean, that's the problem. So here, after 3 days, this young man says, I can't believe it. After all the rehabs that his poor, very wealthy dad was paying for, this is the first time I have felt good in just 3 days. Usually it takes a whole month for me to feel this way, and then I would go out and eventually relapse. I am feeling phenomenal. I can talk, I can think, I'm clear. And he went on to make a very good recovery. He had some supportive help as well. I think it's very important for people to go through therapy, because when you're changing your lifestyle, when you suddenly get well from an addiction, you also need a lot of social support, because who are your friends? Your friends are all a bunch of junkies, So you don't really want to go back to your friends. And that's not the case for a lot of people who have been addicted, say, it's called iatrogenic addiction, because their doctor put them on medication and they stayed on it and became addicted. Not so much for them needing to be, re-socialized. They go back to their family and their friends and they're good. But so many people have a subculture of, let's all get high. So there has to be a lot of re-education, but it's so much easier to do this when you have a brain to work with.
So I totally agree. No, it's absolutely magnificent. Now, if anybody gets interested, how can they reach you? Where websites, telephone numbers, or anything like this? What do you suggest?
Good question. The easiest thing is to send me an email, hyla@drcass.com, drcass.com, or just go to my website, which is drcass.com, drcass.com, if you don't remember the first part. And you can send an email just through the contact page.
Well, I remember very well, many years ago, the very first attempts with drugs was, just say no. I mean, in my opinion, it was the biggest nonsense there is,
Really?
And then came the Narconon people who actually introduced the detoxing, with the niacin-based.
Niacin and sweating saunas.
Right? I mean, what do you think about that?
I think it's very good. The Narconon concept. And actually, it was developed by a doctor in England some time ago. It was attributed to L. Ron Hubbard, but he actually had doctors that were working with him. And so this isn't any comment on the organization that created it, Narconon and whatever, but it really is a most excellent way of detoxing. You sweat out the toxins. The niacin is extremely important. Now, Abram Hoffer was a genius, Dr. Abram Hoffer, and one of my mentors, one of my heroes. Passed away a few years ago in his 90s. Wonderful man, and he discovered the use of niacin for schizophrenia, for depression, and even for, this is really cool, for lowering cholesterol. He is the one who came up with that way before statins came along. And now we have the statins, and the statins are creating a lot of problems.
I know. It's not like, I mentioned this many times at the
So
I
won't go into my statin rant, but it's bottom line.
I've done that many times here.
I mean, lowering cholesterol the way they're lowering it way low. That's not the point. The point is get off of carbs, and rather than getting off of fat. And niacin, it's brilliant. It's actually still used.
Yeah, so actually very interesting, because the original data were published at a big meeting by FASE, Foundation for Advancement in Science and Education. Right? Okay. When they presented those data, I was working with a friend of mine at the magazine, right, the Journal of Longevity, right, and so I got a little bit in there, and we were really quite aware that the orthodox approach was definitely not very hot about it, right? I mean, that was about the nicest way I could say it, right? And so we kept track of it. Well, guess what? When you just say no and just get it right, at that point, the bottom line was a maximum maybe 10% success rate. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, if you really included the detoxing, and they were doing niacin, they were building up real niacin to 1.5 grams a day, or even a little bit more, right? And then sit in the sauna. Because regular niacin, you got to be very careful. It makes your skin flush and prickle, and people have run through the emergency room for that, right?
Just because they don't know, you really have to warn them. You're going to have got all red and flushed, and it's a good thing because it opens up your blood vessels, and it's cleansing. Right. But you got to know that that's going to happen. Or you get
scared.
Then
later on, we actually use niacinamide instead of the non-flushing niacin. And we use that in some cancer treatments. We published that with A4M. Like we had a 64-year-old German-Russian, very successful businessman, former wrestler, every night at Alpine Village, hey, I can do anything, and so on. And suddenly he winds up in the wheelchair, goes to the doctor, prostate cancer fully metastasized through his body, 178 spots, is given 2 months to live, right? And some German friends, Hans, can you talk to this guy? I felt like saying, what the heck do you want me to say to this guy? I mean, obviously he's a goner, right? I mean, but he came in, he was very aggressive. I will do anything, and I talk to Orthodox medics from every aspect. They're all a bunch of blah, 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 whatever, Anyway, I explained the importance of the niacin, the detoxing. Actually, the niacin itself, if you use the niacinamide, niacin does it too. It causes a lipid turnover in lipids are glycerol and 3 fatty acids. And it causes a turnover from mono to diglycerides, and when it does that, it goes back into the blood, and going into the blood, it carries along the toxins into the blood, and then it goes by the skin, your second kidneys, and it sweats it out. What they actually did in several experiments, they did mass spec analysis and analyzed the toxic chemicals in the body. In some instances, between 50 and 100 identifiable chemicals in adipose tissue. Yeah. And when they did the detoxing, they cleaned the skin, put a gauze over it, aluminum foil, sweat, and whatever came out, analyzed it again. I mean, they put zillions of dollars in there and analyzing that. Mass spec is sort of the emperor of the analytical instruments, but it's very expensive. And proportionately what you had in the body, it came out, that stuff.
And you could smell it, too.
Oh, totally.
If somebody's been a smoker, you can smell the smoke. If they haven't smoked dope for like 20 years, it'll come out because it's all stored in the fat cells. And the sweating will actually bring it out. So you don't have to go to a special program to do it. You can do that on your own. Right. But, be careful. It's good to be under a doctor's care to kind of know what you're doing. Right. But to take the niacin, you don't have to be under a doctor's care. Right. That's just...
And the success rate went up to close to 80%.
Wow.
Some days. That was really impressive.
In terms of drug detox.
Right.
Yeah. Well, of course, because you're releasing the drugs from the body. You're cleaning it up. You're cleaning the liver. You're cleaning all the fat stores. And this is why I'm so excited about the way I do drug detox, the way Murray Susser does it. I have, as I said, I mentioned I have my brain recovery and my brain cell support plus and a few others that are on my website, which is drcass.com. And now at his office, he now does the IV infusion. So a person gets hooked up with an IV and they sit there for a few hours for a few days and they're detoxed.
Well, we had Dr. Susser on the show here. I had him on.
Oh.
Yeah. And it went very well. And so anybody out there is interested, either contact me or contact Dr. Kass here,
Or they can contact his office directly.
Right, and so on, and then you can take from there. But what happened with this German-American wrestler there who had 178 spots in the wheelchair, very dynamic, 2:30 in the afternoon, I saw him at our health center with Dr. David Wong in Torrance. That's where I also do the health practices and the aging counseling and so on. Anyway, he called his company. He said, there's a sauna in my house. It doesn't work. It's now 2:30. I'll be home by 5:30. It will work. Go. He did everything this way. Within 2 days, he was out of the wheelchair, literally, dragging himself through the house. A couple of weeks, he was going up and down the Palos Verdes hills. 6 weeks later, he had weights on his arms and legs, continued that. I mean, he literally was living in a sauna. I had to literally tell him, I said, no, don't overdo it, right?
But take electrolytes.
Yeah, but that's the right way to do it, right? Yeah. 6 months later, I always went along when we did the scans at Torrance Memorial Hospital, the bone scan, 85% reversed. 85% reversed. 3 years, it took 3 years, and Torrance Memorial classified him as clear. And a key point that it would really interest, what got me triggered, right, was that he worked with certain confidential government programs in designing high-pressure contents for certain chemicals, right? So we figured if he works with chemicals, his body is probably full of that stuff, so the detoxing becomes very important, which he did. And it was, I mean...
So what does this tell you about cancer? I mean, we know this. You know, you need to detox the body. And what conventional medicine does is the opposite.
Yeah, sadly enough.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing sometimes. Well, it took Ralph Moss, right, who was with the Presbyterian St. Luke in New York, keeping track of success rates of chemotherapy. And he finally comes out with that book, right? And it basically says, well, chemo is a bunch of nonsense. It doesn't really do anything, and so on. I mean, big revolt, literally, from the Orthodox science. But at the same time, another friend of mine, Peter Duisberg from Berkeley, right? He is the original HIV/AIDS dissenter. But he is also the discoverer of oncogenes, and he published a paper, Is Carcinogenesis a Form of Speciation? And he basically showed that when you do chemotherapy, it may kill the absolute majority of cancer cells, but the chemo does convert some of the cancer cells to their own little species that are then totally unaffected, and when they come and re-blossom, you're a goner.
You're creating more cancer.
Right.
That's like cancer stem cells.
Right. And I have the permission from Peter to pass along. Some of my health professionals need that journal, you know, or the rewrite. And, you know, just contact me too, you know. I mean, drhanskugler.com, you know, or whatever. Anyway.
This is very interesting. I mean, I'm a psychiatrist, right? But I've really gone to all these different areas because you can't just treat the brain. You know, anything that's... whether it's cancer or an immune problem, whatever it is, it's going to be affecting the brain. And so often people will come to me as a psychiatrist, you know, they have anxiety, depression, and what's really going on is a whole systemic issue. They have blood sugar dysregulation. They have something in their gut. They have dysbiosis in their gut that's affecting the brain. So that the brain is just recording or reflecting what's going on in the whole body. And that's why we have to practice holistic psychiatry, you know, and practice functional medicine and really look at the whole body. And the brain is one organ, a very important organ.
Well, you actually answered the question that I wanted to ask you along the line in this interview. Like, what's the difference between the psychology and the really psychiatry, you know, when you're doing this? Do you have a few more, you know, like really... You can say anything you want on this show, right? I mean, examples where you know.
Well, I've had some bipolar. Rates. I've had some bipolar patients that were on a whole load of medications and not doing very well on them, having a lot of side effects and just not feeling well, feeling kind of like they lost themselves. They lost their contact with themselves, with their own spirit and their own mind. So what I did was very gradually took them off the medication, but it wasn't just taking them off medication because, oh, that's not good for you, let's take it off, but actually replacing the medication with what they needed. I do individual lab testing so I can tell what they need, you know, and it could be essential fatty acids, which is often the case in bipolar illness, 5-HTP, 5-hydroxytryptophan, it could be other amino acids, and inositol. So by doing that, by testing and seeing what someone needs, we can actually direct the treatment to the root cause. It could actually be gluten sensitivity. Do you know how many people who are schizophrenic or bipolar or depressed have gluten sensitivity? And you think, oh, well, that's the gut. You know, that's just going to be, you know, you get gut problems. But you can have gluten problems hitting your brain. and then you have all these other symptoms.
Absolutely magnificent.
And I hear the music.
I think we're going to take a little break here for a short intermission, and then we'll be back. We'll go a little bit longer. Too interesting to let you go.
Well, don't we? What isn't it like a half hour, or what's the story?
We'll continue a little bit later.
We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Have you been struggling for answers to life's challenges? Of course you have. Now, for the first time ever, you can ask, what's your life purpose? Or how to attract your soulmate and more. Next weekend, all day Saturday, March 29th, 2014, at the Modern Day Prophet event. It's the first of its kind, with angel readers, astrologers, neurologists, physicists, and many more. Just email kecinfo@yahoo.com. Now, the first 10 emails get a free ticket for listening to LA Talk Live Radio. All other emails will get a 2-for-1 ticket. Proceeds benefits all the sick children from the Make a Film Foundation. Once again, the email is kecinfo@yahoo.com. For the link to the event's website, your free ticket, or your 2-for-1 ticket for listening to LA Talk Live right away. Space is limited.
Hey, this is James Kinney, inviting you to join me every Thursday at noon for the Business of Business. Join us as we discuss success and how to reach it. Listen, don't forget to join me every Thursday at noon Pacific Standard Time for the Business of Business, exclusively here on LA Talk Live. Hey, and don't forget, you can also catch me on iTunes Radio R&B, Radio Flag, TuneIn Radio, Live 365, AHA Radio, TiVo Radio, and Apple TV Radio, or just watch and listen directly at latalklive.com, where we are more than just talk. Murked it.
And welcome back to Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live. I'm talking with a longtime dear friend, Dr. Hyla Kass, MD, psychiatrist. We are talking about drug recovery. Very important area. As a matter of fact, I had another gentleman on there, Dr. Gregory Smith, professor, UCLA. He made a magnificent video, American Addicts. Mm-hmm. And we were invited to Hollywood to a movie screening. And I said, what do you mean me? I'm not involved with movies. Oh, there's this guy who made a movie, and so on. And so we get there, and in walks like one of the big basketball players in full power, strength, and so on. Oh, this is Dr. Gregory Smith, right? Professor at UCLA, and he works basically in pain management. And he recognizes the ridiculous things what kids are doing nowadays. The real problem is not real drugs anymore, according to him. It's that kids are raiding their parents' drug cabinets. They're grinding up whatever they find, and they sniff it up their noses, right? And the video is now available, apparently. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be on their next one.
Mm-hmm.
It's just being taped now.
Right.
And I'm actually going to be in it.
Okay.
So
now you wanted to.
Yeah, I just want to invite people to my website, which is drcass.com, drcass.com, and I have a freebie. I have something called Reclaim Your Brain. It's an ebook, and if you sign up, if you go to my website, drcass.com, and put your name and email on any page on the right-hand side, there's a little blank there. You put your name and email, and you get a freebie called Reclaim Your Brain, which explains all this brain chemistry stuff that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And then if people want to know more about addiction, and I think it's really important to understand the chemistry of addiction, I have a book called The Addicted Brain and How to Break Free. that has been very helpful, again, for people to understand what we're talking about. What's this brain chemistry thing, and what brain chemistry changes can you make? Let's say someone has an alcohol issue. And I have a little trick here, which I'll tell you in a minute. What if it's alcohol? What if it's pot? What if it's OxyContin, cocaine, whatever it is? There actually are natural remedies that you can take that will really help. In fact, when somebody has a number of addictions, including sugar, what I do is just put them on my Brain Recovery AM and PM packets, because that kind of covers everything. The multivitamin, there's glutamine in it. And that was my alcohol trick, which I'm going to tell you in a minute, has the amino acid tyrosine and the amino acid phenylalanine, which raise dopamine, which helps with focus and concentration, has serotonin, which is the calming antidepressant, and alpha-lipoic acid and NAC to help detoxify the liver, because anybody who's been addicted for any length of time has liver issues.
Yeah.
And fish oil. We need fish oil because our brain is made out of probably 70% fat. And we have found that without the omega-3s, we're not functioning very well. So those are some of the things that are in my packet. So you don't have to, it's a no-brainer, as it were, for your brain.
Okay.
You just take the AM and PM packet and you're done. And now I'll tell you my alcohol trick. And this really works. I had a woman, Lucy, who sent me an email. She said, "What is in that glutamine?" It's glutamine. She said, "What's in that glutamine?" She said, "I was ready to go out to get a bottle." I guess she was going to go out to buy some liquor. Sort of like at midnight one night, and because she said she was a serious alcoholic, and she said, "And I remember hearing you on the radio. You said take a capsule of glutamine," and she said, "I had some because I bought some when you said so. In fact, I carry it on my website for such emergencies. Put it under your tongue." And she said, "So I put it under my tongue, and I stopped having that desire to go out and get a drink." And she said, "The next couple of times I did the same thing, and guess what? I haven't drunk since. What is in it?" And isn't that funny? So glutamine, there's nothing in it but glutamine is very powerful. It's a blood sugar enhancer. It goes right to the brain, and it gives you the satisfaction that you're actually looking for when you're drinking, whether you know it or not. So isn't that cool?
Oh,
just a little capsule of cheap glutamine. You know?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many alternatives in this field. This is just totally amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at depression alone. Right?
Yes.
I mean, if you look at the numbers, $18 billion for antidepressants.
It's the top-selling drug. The statins and the antidepressants are the top sellers.
Right. And then they don't even take into account the other effects that go along with depression, right? The side effects that cost over $28 billion, right? Maybe we did an analysis of that stuff.
Oh, right.
And what else can you do?
The side effects.
Well, you take some of the nutrients that will balance some of those things. Or, I mean, years ago at the American College of Sports Medicine meeting, there were many reports. John Grice, Wisconsin University, Western University, all agreeing if you measure depression with the SCL-90 depression score, a high degree of depression, you put people on the most basic exercise program that American College of Sports Medicine recommends.
Absolutely.
3 times a week, 30 minutes, heart rate elevated, and the depression will drop down into normal ranges.
How do you like that? Without the side effects. It has side benefits. You get a great body. And you feel good. And everything else works better, too.
You're absolutely right.
I mean, that's amazing. So here, you know what? In a way, it doesn't make sense, but in a way, it does make sense because it's business.
Totally.
I mean, we're talking about business. It's business.
Yeah.
It's marketing. The drugs have been marketed to the doctors and, of course, now to the public on TV. The U.S. is one of the few countries that allows advertising of drugs on TV. Yes. Our kids are seeing these. Our kids are seeing, take a pill, and you'll be in happy land.
Right.
I think it's horrible. It's horrifying.
We actually did a survey. We were asking, let's say, why is this happening here? And a lot of kids told us when they were with their mother going somewhere, the mother just stops at the drugstore. I'm just get my prescription drugs, right? And she says, wow, I mean, she only runs and she gets her drugs, there must be something to it. And that initiates the thought about all this.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And the solution is so simple, right? What we can do.
Yeah, we're a pill-oriented addicted culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the March 8th issue of Time magazine was talking about kids, young kids with old bodies. And what do they pinpoint? Sure, the diet, they had too much sugar, and they talk about endocrine disruption, which is really very good, but they don't really touch on to a key point, which they mention a side effect is fatty liver, right? And the fatty liver is actually caused by the tons of the high fructose corn syrup that we are being fed as a sweetener, right?
And made addicted to. The food industry is made to addict people. You know how the tobacco industry was busted some years ago?
Yeah.
Same thing with the food industry. They actually do studies, they do experiments to find out what lights up the brain the most and put those ingredients into food so that it becomes addictive.
Yeah.
It's not an accident that people are addicted to the foods that they're addicted to. And then people are made wrong, and then that brings up the diet industry, which is, there's the addiction industry, the drug treatment industry, the diet industry.
Money, right?
It's all marketing, it's all money, and we need the solution base. What I'm happy about is that there are programs like this. There are doctors like me and Dr. Susser and some of our colleagues. There's the A4M, there's ACAM, there's IFM. There are all these organizations now that are educating doctors about this other way of doing it. And I can't even say it's a new way of doing it. It's an old way of doing it. This is going back to basics. It's going back to what your grandmother said.
Yeah.
Eat good food, exercise, live cleanly, and there you go.
Right. Well, you know what? When I do anti-aging counseling, very often people used to say, oh, well, health practices, it's just health practices. It's got really nothing to do with real anti-aging. Well, most recently, with the discovery of telomeres, good health practices have been demonstrated as true anti-aging modalities.
Because we can look at the telomeres get longer.
Right.
This is wonderful. We have actual scientific proof that your grandmother was right.
Totally. And my mentor, Charaskin.
Oh, he was a hero.
Lifelong health is a state of homeostasis achieved by doing so and so many health practices correctly.
Yeah.
And there we go again to the basics, right? Okay, now give us your websites, etc. again.
My website is drcass.com, drcass.com, or when you get to it, it'll say cassmd.com. Either one will get you there, cassmd.com. You can send me an email. You can sign up for my free Reclaim Your Brain ebook, which will also put you on my newsletter list where I update you on what's going on. And my website's a lot of fun, too. And I have books. I have my 8 Weeks to Vibrant Health book, which is
showed
wonderful.
In the counter. Yeah.
Camera. And it's been very popular, and I have a program that it goes with it that you can download from the from my website under programs. So I really offer a lot. My book, The Addicted Brain and How to Break Free, I think is very useful for people who want to really understand their brain chemistry and how they can take charge. I am all for people taking charge of their own health. And I'm a guide, I'm an educator, as you are, but we're not going to do it for you. We're not going to just give you a pill and, give you a happy pill. People have to take responsibility, but it's good. It's empowering.
And when you
it's
it
fabulous.
Feels
it feels
dramatic.
Great.
I mean, people are coming back and say, man, I've never felt that good.
Yeah.
What did you sneak into these supplements that you gave me? I didn't sneak anything in there. This was a regular supplement. You did the thing.
Yeah.
You went to the gym 3 times a week. Yeah. You had a regular breakfast in the morning. You cut out the sugar and the sweets. You read the label. Where anything that had high fructose corn syrup in the HFCS, forget it.
Forget it.
Right? And then I also tell them to Google Sugar, the Bitter Truth by Robert Lustig.
Yeah, he did a fabulous. I'm so glad. University of San Francisco. What a hero.
Right.
So we have a lot of these heroes now.
And Ron Klatz, Dr. Ron Klatz from A4M, worldhealth.net, right? Worldhealth.net also has, and that's for everybody, they have a forum where we discuss anything that's new, that's upcoming new. You can literally go there and you type in a few words and you get to the area that you're interested in, right? I'm one of the moderators with a forum over there. And obviously it's for doctors, but nobody cares, if you listen in and if you read about it. They actually welcome you.
I love it. I love that my patients come in and they're very, very educated. And I learn from them.
Yeah.
Because I can't possibly know everything about everything. So they, I say, look, it's your body. Learn as much as you can. That's why I wrote 8 Weeks to Vibrant Health, because it informs people. There's a quiz at the beginning where they can figure out, by taking the quiz, what area of the body they have to pay attention to. And then they can turn to the actual part of the book that will describe what they need to do. Is it thyroid? Is it adrenal? Is it addiction? Is it is it brain chemistry? And then what you can do about it. And very simple, easy terms.
I use a similar trick in my book, Lifelong Health: Learn how to control your genes to stay young with age. Right? I have a chapter in there, calculate your gene expression age. And by going through about 18 points and assigning a value for all the different health practices and everything else, at the end you can actually calculate your gene expression age, which will show you if you're younger or older, what your birth certificate says.
Fabulous.
Right?
How do you get to that?
Well, go to my website, drhanskugler.com. Look at, or you can Google the book, Lifelong Health, Learn How to Control Your Genes.
I'm going to take the test.
Amazon, anybody.
Fabulous.
Remember, I have to do that. And it's a good starting point. Anyway,
Thank
Hyla,
you.
It was magnificent to have you here.
Likewise, this
and
was
we
fun.
have a little bit extra time. It was magnificent. We got to do it again.
Thank you.
And,
Okay.
well,
to be continued.
we will see you in Las Vegas for the A4M meeting. WorldHealth.net. Look for the bouncing red ball. Well, do it and you'll find something interesting.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks, Hans.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you for tuning in to LA Talk Live, reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we're more than just talk. Stay tuned.
Have you been struggling for answers to life's challenges? Of course you have. Now, for the first time ever, you can ask, what's your life purpose? Or how to attract your soulmate and more. Next weekend, all day Saturday, March 29th, 2014, at the Modern Day Prophet event. It's the first of its kind, with angel readers, astrologers, neurologists, physicists, and many more. Just email kecinfo@yahoo.com. Now, the first 10 emails get a free ticket for listening to LA Talk Live Radio. All other emails will get a 2-for-1 ticket. Proceeds benefits all the sick children from the Make a Film Foundation. Once again, the email is kecinfo@yahoo.com. For the link to the event's website, your free ticket, or your 2-for-1 ticket for listening to LA Talk Live right away. Space is limited.
Hi, I'm Onyx Monopoly, inviting you to join me every Monday at 11 a.m. for my new show, Hooked on Onyx, spreading motivation and inspiration through wisdom, experience, and music. So don't forget to tune in to Hooked on Onyx, Mondays at 11 a.m., exclusively on LATalkLive.com, the LA Talk Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, TuneIn Radio, Live 365, Radio Flag, and AHA Radio, or watch and listen directly at LATalkLive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hey everybody, it's your man Sabir Bey, back on your airwaves, inviting you to join us every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Sabir Bey Show, discussing history, law, and hip-hop. Every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, the Sabir Bey Show, exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You also can catch us on iTunes Radio and R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch us and listen directly at LATalkLive.com. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk. Hi, this is Dr. Levi, your fitness doctor, making a personal house call, inviting you to join me Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific for my all-new show, The Dr. Levi Show. Join us as we discuss fitness, health, and well-being, including emotional and spiritual health. So don't forget to tune in to the Dr. Levi Show every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes, Radio R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv, or catch us on the Live 365 network, and now on Radio Flag and Stitcher Radio. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Elena, inviting you to join me every Wednesday at noon for Elena's Beauty Talk and more, exclusively on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Indian Tyler, inviting you to join me beginning April 9th every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Indian Tyler's Beyond the Vanity. Join me as we go beyond the vanity and discuss the real-life issues of beauty. And it gets really real. So on April 9th, don't forget to tune in to Indian Tyler's Beyond the Vanity, Wednesdays at 2 p.m., exclusively on latalklive.com and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, TuneIn Radio, Live 365, Radio Flag, and AHA Radio. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
And welcome back to Here's to Your Health at LA Talk Live. We'll continue our story with an absolutely magnificent recovery, which a lot of people earlier, years ago, thought would never be possible. And we have something like your story going on right now at our health center in Torrance with Dr. David Wong. Who we have here? Susan Moss. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on.
And Susan actually was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Breast and uterine cancer.
And refused the regular treatment.
I refused surgery, yes.
And cured herself.
Healed myself.
Healed herself. And how long ago was that?
23 years.
23 years ago. Magnificent.
Thank you. I'm here to talk today about artist materials. I'm an artist also. Mm-hmm. I wrote 2 books, Keep Your Breasts, Preventing Breast Cancer the Natural Way, and Survive Cancer. But I also am an artist, and one of the problems with art is you're facing a lot of fumes when you're working with materials that are art-related. Mm-hmm. And the very first experience I had with borderline cancer was a lump in my neck, which I got from using acrylic paint in large barrels. I was using big drums of Roplex to do large commissions, like the Bonaventure Hotel. When they built it, they commissioned me to do 4 10-foot paintings for the hotel. And also I did a series called Black Forest, which I did for my grandparents that were killed in Bergen-Belsen concentration mm-hmm. camp in Germany. And I started getting fatigue. I got this lump in my neck. I went to UCLA as an outpatient. This was in the 70s. And they said, you have to stop using that material or you're going to have cancer because it's borderline cancer. And that's when I started learning about cancer. But they told me I had to give up that material. And Hans, that was a very hard thing for me to do. For one thing, I was making money off of it. I had a collector who said he would buy everything I did with Roplex, and he was a very important worldwide famous collector. Mm-hmm. On the board at the Pasadena Museum of Modern Art, which is now Norton Simon, and also he became on the board of MoCA. And so to give up this material was my livelihood, as well as I was doing really gorgeous paintings with it.
You couldn't have used any one of the breathing equipment there, nowadays we have some very simple, lightweight equipment that has some carbon filters in it that would have eliminated that. But I guess at that time, maybe that wasn't possible.
No, I did everything.
Mm-hmm.
I got the filters. I got the masks. Mm-hmm. I painted outside. I tried everything. But once you get, like I'd done it for 7-8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so you build up, it's cumulative. So you build up an intolerance to it so that the body starts breaking down. And so I gave up the material and I started blowing up my drawings. I had a show on Madison Avenue when I was 32 years old. And my dealer, David Finley, said, well, let's put the sketches up. And I said, no, they're just sketches from my sketchbook. I don't want to see them up in Madison Avenue. And he said, no, they really show how you did the painting. And so he talked me into it, and he sold them. So what I did for a year, Hans, is I blew up the drawings, and now they're Earthslide drawings, and they're beautiful, and they sell very well. We just sold 4 of them in Florida in art show, art fair. And I keep doing them. But after a year of doing those, and I showed them at Albright Knox also at the museum, one of the best museums in the country in Buffalo, New York, and they sold them.
You grew up in New York?
No, I grew up I was born in Chicago.
My old stomping ground.
And then I grew up in Reno because we moved there when I was 6.
But you mentioned New York before.
Well, I showed there when I was 32 on Madison Avenue. I had my first show in New York.
Well, some of my footsteps in the U.S. were at first New York, right? I got my PhD at Stony Brook on Long Island, right? My old stomping ground was Brooklyn.
Yes.
Right? I mean, I'm actually it's a very emotional time.
Yes.
Because me, German, coming over here, going to school there, and at Stony Brook, a lot of my friends were Jewish, okay? And they lived in Brooklyn, and so on a weekend, we go in there, and there was a guy, Alan, and his mom, welcomed me into the family. It was absolutely magnificent, right? I had a girlfriend in Brooklyn, and sometimes I would run in a little bit earlier. We go to movies and this and that. And one day, a class was canceled on Long Island. And I called my girlfriend. He says, we can catch that earlier show. Come in. So I, without telling Alan's mom that I would come in, I just drove my old Buick into the city, parked and ran into the house, right? And I said, hi, Mom, how you doing? And she stands there. She normally used to have a long sleeve dress on. She had a short sleeve and he had the number tattooed on her hand. And I recognized that it was just like, and she was just, oh, come on. It's good that you kids get along with each other, and there must be an end to this nonsense,
Yes.
It was absolutely, this is some good memories over there.
Yeah.
And very earth-shaking, some of them,
Sad story with my grandparents.
Yeah.
But after a year of doing the drawings, I wanted to get back to painting, and there was nothing. I wanted to switch to oils. There was nothing I could use. Everything in the art store was too fumy for me. I had become a universal allergic, so I couldn't even go in a restaurant because there was cigarette smoke. I couldn't even use a
I know. We still had, everybody was still able to smoke anywhere, right?
And I couldn't even use a felt tip pen because of the fumes. You get so allergic that you're allergic to everything. And so there's nothing I could use. So 2 years of research, and I finally found this company in Canada, Hans, that produces this linseed oil, and now we have it so that people can use it. This is the organic Pure Flow linseed oil. It makes transparent. It's transparent. The first ever transparent linseed oil, so you can really see the color you're mixing. Because usually linseed oil is amber color. And this is thin, so you don't need thinner with it. It's been processed so that all the fatty acids are processed out. You get the purest, only the very pure linseed oil. And it's beautiful to use. It's like working with water almost. And you mix your colors, and these are the first layers. This is my painting on the label and my signature.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can see the painting up here that I started with the thin layers, and then I go to the thicker oil, which is heavy glazing linseed oil. This is my painting also on the label and my signature. We developed these oils over 25 years, and I've used them so the subsequent layers are done with this heavier oil so that you get more impastos. And you know, the old masters used to die young. They died in their 50s and 60s from using the fumes. The fumes obliterated their health. Hitting your eye and removing the cover of your eye, hitting your lungs, creating cancer.
Yeah, I'm aware of some of that. Not exactly the cause. That's very interesting. You know?
So now we have linseed oil. You can order it from OmegaArtStore.com. You can go on my website, SusanHMoss.com. You can see my work. I've used this oil for 25 years. It dries beautifully. It's archival.
And we're going to take a little break here. We'll be right back. And we will talk a little bit more. That's really very interesting stuff. Because I have some artists, they mentioned some of the problems that you mentioned. And
Yes.
I never really recognized how severe they were.
Very sweet.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Have you been struggling for answers to life's challenges? Of course you have. Now, for the first time ever, you can ask, what's your life purpose? Or how to attract your soulmate and more. Next weekend, all day Saturday, March 29th, 2014, at the Modern Day Prophet event. It's the first of its kind, with angel readers, astrologers, neurologists, physicists, and many more. Just email kecinfo@yahoo.com. Now, the first 10 emails get a free ticket for listening to LA Talk Live Radio. All other emails will get a 2-for-1 ticket. Proceeds benefits all the sick children from the Make a Film Foundation. Once again, the email is kecinfo@yahoo.com. For the link to the event's website, your free ticket or your 2-for-1 ticket for listening to LA Talk Live right away. Space is limited.
It started out like a totally normal day.
I love you.
I mean, I guess I was a little sweaty and I was definitely sore. I thought I had gas. Turns out I was having a heart attack. Heart disease is the #1 killer of American women. So now I take care of myself and tell the other women in my life to do the same. Make it your mission to save your life and the lives of the women you love. Find out more from the American Heart Association at goredforwomen.org.
And welcome back to Here's to Your Health at LA Talk Live. And as we always demonstrated, we are definitely more than just talking. Susan Moss is a guest here, who a long time ago had breast cancer, refused the regular treatment, and guess what? He's still alive. How many years later?
23 years, breast and uterine cancer at the same time.
Breast and uterine cancer, healed yourself. Tell us a little bit more your initial thinking. Like, I mean, you were diagnosed, you were told not to use any one of the materials that you were working with, right? But what else? I mean, what direction were you heading at first?
Well, actually, that happened in the 70s. And I did get rid of the lump myself because the doctor said, if you don't get rid of the lump in a year, we're going to operate and take it out. And at that time, I had a very simple health program. And it consisted of 3 things, only 3 things. Running on the beach, which I couldn't even run at first. I had an architect friend. I was so fatigued. But we built it up. A few steps and then a little faster.
Yeah, I know.
And
I tell people all the time.
And then carrot juice. My dad was into health way before was the trend in the 50s.
But the beta-carotenes, very much anti-cancer,
carrot juice
antioxidants.
every day. And then the third thing was visualization, and this is how I did it, Hans. I discovered Carl Simonton. in the LA Times. There was a big article. I said, I can use that. And so I would turn on rock music real loud, and I would visualize little white men with a rope, and they would go down and climb into my neck. They would tie the rope around the lump, and then I would visualize them to the beat of the music coming out of my mouth with the lump.
Well,
three
you know,
things.
that was actually a key point. Many years ago, when we started this thing in the visualization, it worked very well with children, but much less with adults. Why? Because simply kids have no problem visualizing any one of those Disney characters in your body with little shorts, and they're cutting up that cancer and taking it and throwing out through the liver and so on and so on. And it worked, right? I mean, this is really amazing. It's not only then. As a matter of fact, I had an extreme car accident. We talked about this several times. It turned out after a year and a half of diagnosing, including USC, et cetera, that it had ruptured parts of my heart. Diagnosed at USC was nothing could be done about it. For drugs and a pacemaker and a defibrillator installed in here for the rest of your life. I mean, basically, and I just said, no way, right? And later on in an evaluation, I mean, I'm totally back to normal, right? But we used a lot of the alternative approaches, quality nutrition. I'm very much into exercise. And the exercise is something maybe we want to touch on a little bit more, because it's becoming more and more important in enhancing immune functions, which is important for, for stimulating immune functions, right?
Oh, but exercise is the key.
Oh, totally. And the quality nutrition and, detoxing and all these things. But a lot of experts in this field that contacted me afterwards. I mean, there were some heart surgeons, experts, that contacted me and said, hey, there must be something else, because the condition that you were in, there is just no way of reversing that, right?
I had a surgeon come from the Valley to my art studio, and he said, I only get 50% results. The rest of my patients die of breast cancer.
Right.
What are you doing here?
That's right. I mean, and some of the people that are a little bit more open-minded, like Dr. Ron Klotz for AFOM, the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. By the way, worldhealth.net. I mean, go there. It's fascinating. And so on. A lot of these people were actually suggesting or explaining my recovery. Just, the no results and the downhill was totally unacceptable in my life. So I visualized. I mean, from morning to night, I didn't even pay attention to this problem that I had. I would go fly my airplane. I would go ride my horse, and and everybody says, I mean, that's just you transmitted that whole idea into it, right?
Exactly. I think the point you made about children is really important, because children have imagination, and all children are great artists. It's only when it's all beat out of them by schools, by teachers, by adults, that they forget. And then they say, oh, I couldn't draw a straight line with a ruler. They tell me that. But that's not true. They can draw. And being an artist, visualization was so simple for me. And then when I got actual cancer was in the 90s. So I already had the experience, because I did get rid of that lump in a year. And the doctor was shocked. He thought he would have to operate on me. And here I show up totally normal with no lump.
Yeah.
So when the doctor said, well, you have breast and uterine cancer, we're going to see the surgeon right now. And I said, no. And he's calling me every day, and I'm saying no. And he's finally saying, come back in 2 months, because he's giving up on getting me the surgeon right away, right? He's going to wait 2 months. And I got rid of those tumors within that 2 months. In fact, I was a week early. And he almost fainted dead on the floor when he couldn't find any tumors in my body.
Oh, yeah, we have these experiences all the time. Like in the previous program here, we were talking to Dr. Hyla Kass. We talked about a German-Russian wrestler who had fully metastasized cancer, 178 spots, and so on and so on. And applying similar principles. I mean, attitude, thinking, detoxing, quality foods, antioxidants, and everything else. And then came a friend of his, an attorney, metastasized cancer, had several spots, not 170, just about 8 of them. But when you have spots in your bone scan, that's pretty damn bad, right? So anyway, I will do the same thing what Heinz did. He did this, goes back to the doctor, does another bone scan, and I called the doctor and I just wanted to alert him. I says, look, I'd really be interested what's going on in there, with the bone scan, let me know, and so on. And the guy was really called me back. It was really obnoxious. I mean, oh, come on, this is nonsense, we got the bone scan, there's nothing there. Oh, it's obviously a mistake. The machine, there's something wrong with the machine, right? And, that's the blank, hang up on me, right? But this is really kind of normal. You get used to those things. But then I had respect for the guy. A week later, he calls me, and he's kind of apologetic. Sorry, I was so whatever, We did that bone scan again, and we evaluated things, and the spots are really gone. Now, what did you do? Right? Now he wanted to know, right? And that man also, fully, cancer is gone.
Well, when I had breast and uterine cancer, I made up a 20-point program called MOTEP, which is in my books, Keep Your Breath and Survive Cancer. And I never had a biopsy, by the way. So some people attacked me. So in the book Survive Cancer, everybody had a biopsy. Everybody, no exception. And you'll see how they got well. And some used my health program, and some made up their own program. But they're very similar. And it's just a fantastic book because these people are so courageous. The doctor tells them they have 3 months or whatever, and they say, "Doctor, you're wrong. I don't have 3 months. I'm going to get well." And these people do it themselves. And there isn't that much precedent. So they don't know they can do it, but they have the courage to do it. And there's a guy I interviewed in Japan. He was very, very sick with cancer. He had it all over his body. And he couldn't stand the smell of chemo. It made him, it was repellent to him. So he went up on the roof to get away from the smell. And they thought he was going to commit suicide, so they sent him home. And then he figured out how to get well.
Yep.
And he got
well.
We
see it all the time nowadays?
Yeah, he goes around in lectures now.
Yeah.
And he talks with Dr. Wheel, Dr. Andrew Wheel.
Yeah.
And he's a friend of Wheel's, and they go on lecture tours.
Give us some more of your websites and how to, if they want to know a little bit more, learn more.
Well, www.susanhmoss.com. And you have to put the H in because there's a woman in Australia named Susan Moss who dominates the web. For the linseed oil, OmegaArtStore.com. But I think we've added that to my website now, too, so that you can see that if you're an artist. You can work all day, an 8-foot painting, and there's going to be no fumes in your studio. You don't need thinner. You don't need varnish.
So there's 2 types. The thin one that you use
thin
at
one
first.
And the thicker one. And I did this painting with it, and there's no varnish there. You can see how satiny it is.
But over time, see, very often with artwork, over time, the oxidation of some of the oils they're using plays a role. There's no problem with that?
No, I've had paintings 25 years. They have not changed. I use very good oil paint. I use the Old Holland to mix with the oils, and that is very light proof. It's very expensive also, but whatever you use, this will protect it. And
I know a little bit about that because, see, after a long time ago, I mean, that's just history in my family. After World War I, my family, my father and so on, they were very relatively wealthy. And he told, grandfather then, he told the boys, my father and his brothers, he says, I don't care what you do, but you learn something. You get anything. So my father became a pharmacist, right? And when after World War II, we were in East Germany, we escaped, running, shooting, bang, bang over the border to West Germany. And my father's brother was actually a very famous church restorer. He restored the Ulmer Münster, the Crosswalk, and so on. He was a very famous artist, right? I mean, he just, that was his calling, in life. And
well, you can also use this on wood. My assistant, Neil, who I brought with me today, makes wood, carves wood, and then he puts this linseed oil on, and he can do it in his garage with the door closed. There's no fumes, and it comes out beautiful. So you can use it as wood. You can even do your wood furniture with it.
Okay, sounds good. Well, Susan, it was definitely a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
Talking to you. I'm so excited to be part of LA Fitness here. We meet the most interesting people, and the nicest thing is everybody confirms our approaches. The non-drug, alternative approaches, good health practices, quality nutrition,
Exercise.
Anyway, exercise.
So important.
Yeah, I mentioned the studies earlier, 50% of everything, exercise, right? Anyway, good to have you here.
Thank you so much.
We will do it again sometime.
Let's do it.
And think positive.
Very positive.
And if you win $1 million out, they give 90% away to somebody who needs it.
That's a great idea.
Right.
I'm going to give away some money today.
Thank you for tuning into LA Talk Live and the Talk Live Broadcast Network, original reality radio, handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk. Stay tuned.